Chapter 1. The star-filled sky I saw from the bottom of the ravine was more beautiful than anything I'd ever seen, which only made it all the more absurd, given that I was currently sprawled atop a mountain of illegally dumped garbage, having just tumbled down here. What a pathetic way to die, really doesn't suit my name at all. I let out a bitter chuckle comparing my name, Misaki Hanazono, to the pitiful state of my life. I grew up in an orphanage, never knew my parents' faces, got fired from a job where harassment was the norm, and now here I was, clinging to someone's offhand comment that climbing a mountain will change your life. Sure, my life changed, it's just that now it's about to end. No family, no friends, no one would even think to look for me. I must have injured something important in the fall. I can't move, and the pain is awful. On top of that, the cold is seeping into my bones, and my consciousness is fading. At this rate, I'll probably just be found as a skeleton someday. God, please, if there is a next life, let me at least be a beautiful flower or something. No, wait, a flower's life is too short. That'd suck too. That was the last thought to cross my mind before my consciousness faded. My awareness drifted upward, gently. It felt like waking up after a deep, dreamless sleep, but I couldn't move my body. My mind was clear, yet I felt as if my entire body had been encased and immobilized. I struggled for a while, but it was useless, so I gave up. I couldn't move, but I could breathe. It was warm and oddly comforting. Strangely enough, I even felt full despite doing nothing. Apparently, I was still able to eat somehow. Is this what heaven's like? Not what I expected. A state where I didn't have to do anything to stay alive. No work, no responsibilities. It was easy, sure, but terribly boring. I had no idea how long that time dragged on. I was just so bored. If only I could move my limbs and run around freely. Nina Ablea? It came out of nowhere. Like someone yanking on my hair, I was suddenly torn out of that warm place by some unknown force. Shocked, I screamed at the top of my lungs, panicking. Even I was surprised by how loud my voice was. Amid the chaos, I thought I heard a faint papa-parapa from a trumpet, maybe a hallucination. I had no clue what was going on. I was briefly airborne before thudding to the ground. Above me stretched a bright blue sky. I realized I was outside and lying on the ground. What the heck was that? I pushed up with my hands and slowly rose. I was about to be relieved that I could move when something green entered my field of vision and made me freeze. It was a person. A giant, easily 3 times my size, lying prone with green skin. Kay, why? I screamed in terror and bolted as fast as I could. Even the trumpet-like melody echoing faintly from somewhere scared me enough to sob as I ran, flailing my limbs. I pushed through the giant grasses surrounding me, running further and further away. Where even was this? Towering plants taller than I was. This place was strange. Maybe this wasn't heaven at all. Maybe it was hell. Someone, anyone, please help me. Can't anyone hear me? Louder, stronger, until someone could hear me. I ran with that hope in my heart. Among the continued trumpet sounds came another, sharper beep like an electronic chime, but I had no time to care. The grass gave way to a forest of massive trees. Still running and screaming, the melody began to fade, then disappeared. No more weird sounds either. Calming down, I staggered toward a spring I'd spotted nearby. I should drink some water and calm down. I wonder if it's safe to drink? Peering into the spring, I froze. Staring back at me was a brown object, something like a clay doll with round black eyes, and growing from the top of it was a bizarrely beautiful flower. The contrast was absurd. I looked down at my own body. My raised hand was the same brown as my torso, so were my legs. The easiest comparison would be a daikon radish with limbs, but stubbier and rounder, like a turnip. No, I screamed again. I wasn't human anymore. Misaki, that person would never have screamed like this, not even after being punched or pushed downstairs. I always bit my lip and kept quiet. So whoever I was now, I wasn't Misaki anymore. Still sobbing in confusion and terror, something suddenly dropped next to me with a soft thud, making me shriek again. It was a bird, twitching spasmodically. Did it die or just faint? Was it because of my scream? A screaming plant that causes death or unconsciousness just by its voice. Only one creature came to mind. Don't tell me I reincarnated as a Mandragora. So the plants weren't unusually big. I was just small. Mandragoras aren't very large, after all. That green-skinned giant might not have been a giant at all. Apparently, I had been reborn in another world as a Mandragora. And in a world where Mandragoras exist, who knows what the ecosystem is like? How was I supposed to survive in a place like this? God, I did wish to be a beautiful flower before I died, but I never asked to be reborn as a Mandragora. Thus, full of despair, I cried out again, just like a Mandragora should. Chapter 2. After crying my heart out, I finally noticed the still twitching bird lying next to me. The fact that it was twitching meant it was still alive. Apparently, it had only fainted from my scream. I was relieved I hadn't killed it and reached out, extended my root to bring it somewhere safe and care for it. In fantasy stories, Mandragora lore sometimes says hearing their scream kills you, and sometimes just causes fainting or confusion. Maybe in this world, it's the latter. The moment I touched the bird's body, I sensed a taste. It was surprisingly good. I blinked in confusion at the strange phenomenon, and the bird began to wilt. Soon it shriveled into a dry, twig-like form and stopped moving at the same time that trumpet melody played again in my head. Is that sound something like a level-up chime? Even someone raised in an orphanage has played games before. When a character levels up, there's always a little melody to signal it. That had to be it, which meant I'd leveled up by defeating that bird. Mween! Apparently, Mandragoras aren't built for human speech. I'd tried to say I'm sorry, but it came out sounding like a sheep's bleat. I really want to be able to talk properly someday. Ugh, this body absorbs life just by touching things. I really am a monster, aren't I? Or maybe a magical beast. I mean, roots are supposed to absorb nutrients, and these limbs I've been thinking of as arms and legs must be roots that suck energy from anything they touch. Wait, those trumpet sounds played multiple times earlier, didn't they? Did I accidentally commit mass murder? This bird survived my scream, but maybe other creatures aren't so lucky. It's possible the effect of a Mandragora's voice varies between species. Some might die just from hearing it. And I had run through the forest screaming like mad, spreading my deadly voice everywhere. If any of those creatures lacked resistance to it, I might have wiped out a whole bunch of them. I felt myself going pale, though technically my skin was brown now. What if there were humans among them? If it were other monsters, it's one thing. But I had a strong feeling that as a human, even if only previously, killing another human being is something I can't, or rather shouldn't do. Should I go back and check? I turned toward the deep forest. From my tiny Mandragora-sized body, all I saw was a dark, ominous thicket of towering trees and grass. Just looking at it made my courage falter. Going back to check for bodies? Yeah, no. That wasn't happening. Seems I'd become a lot more cowardly since turning into a Mandragora. Whether it's a racial trait or just my personal disposition as a monster, I couldn't say. But what now? I don't even know how Mandragoras live. I still had my memories from when I was human, enough to fully believe I was Hanazono Misaki until I saw myself. My personality seemed to have shifted in some ways, but my values still felt close to human. Humans need food, shelter, and clothing now that I think about it. When I first woke up, I was fine even without doing anything. That was before I got yanked out by that green guy when I was buried in the dirt. So if I go underground, I guess that takes care of both food and shelter. Also, let's face it, Mandragoras don't need clothes. Even if my chubby little root body is totally exposed, it's just a root. Nothing shameful about it, though still this body is ridiculously well fed. The soil I was originally buried in must have been super nutrient-rich. My flower really is beautiful too. Yeah, just looking at the flower, it's not bad. Mandragoras are fantasy plants, so there's no direct equivalent back in my old world. But the large pink petals layered like a rose or peony glowing faintly were genuinely gorgeous. Maybe the gods had granted my dying wish. Though looking below that bloom, I was still a turnip with stubby limbs and a Hanua doll's face. Not exactly a dream come true, but the flower was undeniably lovely. I remembered that saying, "A beautiful flower grows from death." I tried not to think too hard about what nutrients might have nourished me in that soil and shook the thoughts from my head. Plants should be able to rest underground, right? So even without a house, I can rest anywhere. Today's been exhausting, maybe I'll rest and think again later. The soil near the spring was soft and damp, easy to burrow into. Surprisingly comfortable, too. Maybe I could make a home here. Just as I was getting drowsy with the idea, something yanked me up again. K-Y-A-A-A-Wah! Gwa, I screamed reflexively from the sudden shock. This body apparently screams automatically when startled, so I had no control over it. Like before, I was flung into the air, this time landing with a splash in the water. The next instant, I locked eyes with a fish. It had 8 eyes. And of course, I screamed again. The trumpet melody was blaring inside my head once more. No, 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 that's terrifying. Why can't I swim faster? I wish I had webbed hands or something. The moment I wished for it, I found I could swim better. I scrambled to land as fast as I could. Waiting for me was that same green-skinned giant from before. Apparently, these green giants have a habit of pulling up Mandragoras from the ground when they spot one. Okay, decision made. I need to find a safe, really safe place to live. Maybe there's a human kingdom somewhere. In a human land, monsters like this wouldn't be roaming around, right? The problem was my current form, a Mandragora, a plant monster. Even if I have human memories, no way they'd accept me. I sighed, then noticed something about my hand and jumped. I had a hand. What was once just a thick root tip had turned into a proper hand, with webbing between the fingers. Why? Was it because I wished for webbed hands? Could it be that this body changes to match my desires? Looking down at my creepy webbed hand, I swallowed, or rather sucked in air. Seems Mandragoras don't have saliva. Elsewhere, in a room in the royal castle of a certain kingdom, court mage Nikolaus was staring intently at a single potted plant. He hadn't moved in over an hour, prompting the knight ritter assigned as his assistant to finally speak up in concern. Mage Dono, may I ask what exactly are you doing? What? Isn't it obvious? Not to me, no. Ugh, this is why I can't stand commoners. Nikolaus shot him a look of pure exasperation, and Ritter bristled slightly. But this man was an undisputed magical genius employed by the crown itself. As a knight sent to assist him, Ritter had no right to talk back. He bit back the complaint rising to his lips. Everyone knew Nikolaus was eccentric. It came with the territory. Let me dumb it down. Most monsters just grow bigger as they evolve. That's the general rule. They're dumb, so all they care about is brute strength. But the smart evolve in much more interesting ways. Huh, monsters can be intelligent? Somewhat. Not on par with humans, sure, but there are monsters with enough sense to strategize like monkeys or crows, and those monsters can choose how they evolve. Most monsters were no better than beasts, often worse, since they were more aggressive and lacked reason. As they aged and gained strength, they tended to grow larger. Occasionally, however, certain individuals underwent strange, unique transformations. These were called variant species, and Nikolaus was currently researching them. But isn't that a Mandragora? Exactly, that's my current subject. Even plant-based monsters like Mandragora seem to possess some degree of intelligence. They can scream, and they move around a bit. Makes them closer to animals, don't you think? So tell me, what kind of Mandragora would you be afraid of? Mandragoras are classified as magical plants. Their screams are used in the creation of elixirs, and since they can't move on their own, they're easy to farm. Most people treat them more like dangerous herbs than actual monsters. Their only real threat is the cursed scream they emit when pulled from the ground, which can kill the unprepared. But with proper earplugs, they pose no danger. Since they're rooted, the damage they cause is extremely limited. Well, I guess if one could run around, that'd be scary. If it screamed and I wasn't prepared, I might die. Huh, not bad for a commoner. A running Mandragora, I'd love to see that. What do you think want to evolve in that direction? Talking to a potted Mandragora like it could answer him, Nikolaus was clearly a madman. A running Mandragora, that's absurd. If such a thing existed, it would upend the entire ecosystem. They say there's a fine line between genius and madness, but still no way he'd make an actual running Mandragora, right? Chapter 3. I had discovered that a monster's body could evolve in whatever direction it desired. That realization gave me hope. If there were humans or intelligent beings similar to them in this world, perhaps I could blend in with their society and live peacefully. If my form could change according to my wishes, then surely I could one day take on a human shape. All right, goal set, become human. But the only humanoid I've seen so far is that green giant. I really hope that isn't what passes for a human in this world. The green-skinned giant still lay by the water, eyes rolled back and foaming at the mouth, definitely dead. He had been the one to pull me out of the ground, causing all that terror. Now that I finally took a proper look at him, I noticed his skin was green, his chest unnaturally dark, and he had small horns sprouting from his forehead. He wore only a ragged cloth around his waist. Didn't seem particularly intelligent. He looks more like a demon than a human. A green demon? Maybe a goblin? But goblins are supposed to be small. Maybe goblins were just big in this world. Then again, I wasn't human anymore. I was a Mandragora. If goblins were bigger than me, that only made sense. In that case, real humans must be even bigger. I'd need to actually see one to set a proper goal. And there was still the question of whether humans even existed in this world to begin with. Voices somewhere nearby. I heard people talking. I darted into a patch of underbrush and hid. Was it another green giant or something else entirely? Peeking through the bushes, I cautiously observed. You've got to be kidding me. The court mage seriously sent us into a monster-infested hellscape like this? Two figures were walking toward me, speaking in words I could understand. Thank goodness no language barrier. Even more importantly, they looked exactly like the humans I knew. I was so overwhelmed with joy that I nearly shouted "yeah" out loud, but managed to quickly slap a webbed hand over my mouth just in time. Thank goodness for those webbed fingers. Hardly anyone beside us could make it this far. Even so, the court mage's research is for the good of the kingdom and its people. It's only right that a holy knight would assist in that. You're such a model knight, it hurts. These two grown men were even taller than the green giant from earlier. If he were standing, he wouldn't even reach their waists. I compared their height against the surrounding trees, estimating proportions in my head. Now that I had a concrete reference for what a human looked like, I actually started to feel excited. With a clear goal, my motivation soared. Since I'm a girl, I'll aim to be a little shorter than them. Wait, I'm a girl, right? I wasn't sure about Mandragora biology. Were we dioecious, like plants with separate male and female individuals? Or hermaphroditic, with both stamens and pistils? Either way, I still carried the consciousness of Hanazono Misaki, and as far as I was concerned, I was female, so I'd aim to evolve into a female human body. And if I'm going to make a body, then yeah, I want to be like, totally hot. I want an amazing figure. My past life left me with a blocky build, and now I was basically a round, waddling root ball. But in this new life where I could evolve however I wanted, why not go for a stunning body? Big chest, narrow waist, shapely hips, that's the dream. Anyway, I've confirmed humans exist. Better get out of here before they see me. If I scream by accident, I might kill them. With that, I dashed away at full speed. I would level up by defeating monsters, evolve bit by bit, and eventually take on a human form. Then I'd live in the human kingdom. Those two had called this place a monster-infested hell, so human settlements were probably safer. Just as I started running, I thought I heard a shocked voice behind me, probably my imagination. I had to get far enough that even if I did attack something, I wouldn't risk harming them. All right, let's do this.
Hey? Hey?
Did you see that? A totally hot Mandragora just ran by. Having come to the monster zone on an errand from court mage Nikolaus, Leonhardt now found himself deeply concerned for his colleague Ritter, who had just pointed at nothing and said something insane. Ritter, are you okay? They said the miasma here had thinned out. But if you're seeing hallucinations, just a few years ago, this land was so thick with miasma, dense magical energy, that no living thing could survive here. The corpse of a dragon that died 500 years ago had emitted so much miasma that even monsters avoided the place. Only recently had the miasma begun to clear. Now the land was rich with magic and fertility. Plants flourished, monsters were born instead of animals, and they fought and consumed each other, growing stronger. This place was in the middle of forming a new ecosystem, a true monster realm. I swear something ran by. Mandragoras don't run, Ritter. That's absurd. But Nikolaus said intelligent monsters can evolve in unique ways. It's not that crazy to imagine a running Mandragora. You probably imagined it because you'd been hearing that nonsense. Let's finish the job and go back. Even if such a bizarre creature could exist, the monster realm was still too young. Mutant variants were supposed to take decades or centuries to develop. Still, as they headed for their objective, they encountered a strange sight. This is odd. There's a ton of dead goblins. Yeah, and these are curse deaths. Goblins do have low curse resistance, but this is excessive. Black stains spread across each goblin's chest, typical signs of death by curse. Dozens of corpses lay scattered around. Leonhardt furrowed his brow. For every one goblin you see, assume there are 50 more. That's how fast they reproduce. And if this many were dead along a straight path, not even while detouring, there could be hundreds. I'm immune to curses, but Ritter, you'd better be careful. This could be lethal. Get the holy water ready. We need to keep undead-type monsters at bay. Hey, what if it was a running Mandragora? If one was screaming while running and the goblins had no resistance, this could happen, right? Be realistic. It's far more likely that an undead-type monster with curse powers was born here. With caution, they finally reached the designated location, once the resting place of a dragon's corpse. 500 years later, the bones were mostly gone, but faint traces could still be seen among the grass. Nicolaus's request was simple: recover the mandragora that had grown using the dragon's remains as nutrients. If he planted it himself, couldn't he just come pick it up? I'm sure the court mage is busy. He probably couldn't leave. You seriously need to be more suspicious of people. They split up to search for the mandragora, but couldn't find it. Only the remains of goblins, cursed to death, and a gaping hole in the ground. Leonhardt, I know what you're thinking. We need to report to the mage. Was it stolen? Or had it moved on its own? Normally, the former would be obvious, but with Ritter insisting he saw a running mandragora, the latter didn't seem so far-fetched. If a mobile mandragora really exists, it's fine as long as it stays in this monster realm. But if it ever shows up where humans live, it could be a disaster. If spotted, it must be eliminated before it brings harm to humans. Chapter 4. Now that I'd seen humans and was in high spirits, I decided to grow stronger by defeating monsters in order to become more human. If it was just those green giants, turns out they were goblins, I could handle them easily. All I had to do was scream, and if they didn't die outright, they'd pass out, and I could eat them by touching them. And if it came down to it, I could just burrow underground and absorb nutrients there. This body really is convenient when it comes to food. Being a mandragora might not be so bad after all. Despite everything, it seemed I was starting to accept my situation. I'd been in utter despair when I first realized I was a mandragora, but now I had a goal and things didn't seem so bleak anymore. I was happily on the move when something suddenly lunged at me from the side. Wabblia. Something sharp pierced my body, and pain erupted. I screamed from the agony, and in my blurred vision, I saw that some kind of beast had bitten into me. The beast heard my scream at point-blank range and immediately collapsed to the ground. Its jaw loosened and released me, but where it had bitten still hurt terribly. Ow, it's leaking some kind of fluid. Blood? Ugh, come on, heal already. Doesn't being a mandragora mean I should have some kind of healing ability or make awesome medicine or something? I just wanted the wound to heal. I needed medicine. As I wished for that, a different sound echoed in my head, a single short beep, different from the level-up chime. I'd heard it before. Huh. It stopped hurting. There's some kind of sparkly liquid coming out of the hole. Weird. At first it had been green liquid, probably mandragora blood, but now it was glowing, sparkling even, and frankly it looked creepy, even more so because the wound visibly began to close. Is this a healing potion? I can make it inside my own body? Maybe that beep had been a signal that the medicine was ready? No, wait, I'd heard it before too, back when I was screaming and running from the goblin. But that time, I didn't make any potion. It must mean something else entirely. I don't get it. If this were a game, there'd be a log or messages telling me what's happening. I wish I had a status screen or something. Another beep. Suddenly, letters appeared in front of me. Status display acquired, it read. Startled, I let out a small scream and fell down. Mandragoras are prone to screaming after all. Don't scare me like that. This really is just like a game now. Still, if I can get proper info this way, it'll help a lot. All right, show me my status. As I wished it, a flood of information appeared before me. I carefully examined it and began sorting through the details. Species Mandragora, mutant, level 86. Vitality B, magic unmeasurable. Skills, voice spread, medicine creation, status display, evolution points 62. Description: a top-tier mandragora grown in dragon-infused soil and steeped in rich magical energy. As an ingredient, it can produce any kind of potion, but it has undergone a unique evolution allowing for rapid movement, making it difficult to capture. Its voice inflicts death via curse and requires thorough countermeasures. Possesses the skill to spread its voice in a wide area, enabling attacks from unseen distances. At this rate, it is highly likely to become a disaster-class monster. Extreme caution advised. The tone of the description felt weirdly like something aimed at people, not me. It was as if this was meant for someone else to read, like a game interface made for humans. Wait, I'm considered an ingredient. Also, hey, I can talk now? Somehow I could now speak clearly. Just a few hours ago, I was bleeding like a sheep when I tried to say sorry to a bird. Monster evolution sure is fast, but this new ability didn't show up as a skill. That beep must signal a skill acquisition. But just changing body parts doesn't count as a skill. Like these webbed hands, I mean, regular Mandragoras definitely don't have those. Looking down, I saw that the wound had completely healed, but the bitten area now had a noticeable dent, the part where the beast had clamped down. Wait. This dent, it's not from the bite. My brown, daikon-like body now had boing, a suspiciously perfect hourglass shape. This wasn't even practical. The only thing it was good for was being laughed at if posted online. Not that I had a smartphone or social media, not even Twitter still existed in the old world, let alone here. Sure, I said I wanted a nice body, but not like this. Not while I still look like a root vegetable. I slumped to the ground, hands on the dirt, dejected. That's when my finger brushed against the dead beast beside me, and I was hit by that familiar sensation of deliciousness, followed immediately by its energy being absorbed. I hadn't even meant to. This wasn't listed as a skill either. It must be a natural trait of Mandragoras, or of plant-type monsters in general. Roots absorb nutrients. That's just how nature works. But that means I can't touch other living beings with these hands. Isn't there another way? After thinking it through, I remembered that above-ground parts, leaves, stems, and flowers, didn't absorb energy. That had to be why the goblin could grab my flower top and pull me up. If I could grow vine-like appendages from up there that I could control, then I could make thin vines and use them like human hair. The moment I wished for it, a mess of green thread-like strands spilled down from the top of my head. I could control them freely. Moving each individual vine was too much, but bundling them together like a rope worked just fine. Like a vine whip, really. I glanced at my status screen again. The evolution points had dropped from 62 to 61. So 1 point for each transformation? I wonder how can I earn more points? Still, with this many, I might actually be able to take human form, but I couldn't tell how my changes looked unless I saw myself. I needed to find water, something that could reflect my image, better to evolve somewhere with a clear view. After wandering for a while, I found a beautifully clear pool of water adorned with lotus-like flowers. I eagerly leaned over to check my reflection. What stared back at me was a creature with tangled, uneven green hair sticking up in wild tufts, a lumpy brown body with oddly placed curves, and 2 pitch-black eyes peeking out from between strands like gaping voids. I screamed, of course. It looked like some cursed doll you'd find in a haunted garbage dump, the kind of thing that just radiates bad vibes. It was absolutely terrifying. Well, if I look like a doll now, that's progress? Progress? At least it's vaguely person-shaped now. I'd evolved from a brown daikon to a cursed doll that was still a step closer to being human, right, and thus a cause for celebration. At least that's what I want to think. Chapter 5. How much time has passed since then? From that cursed doll-like form, I had finally managed to evolve into something that could plausibly be seen as human. Well, mostly. The Mandragora flower on my head couldn't be removed no matter what I did, so I decided to sprout other flowers and plants around it, making it look like a stylish hat covered in blooms. I worried that if it was just the Mandragora flower, people might get suspicious, so I wished to be able to grow different kinds of plants and gained a new skill called diversification. It allowed me to grow any plant I'd previously consumed, using my own magic as fuel. That skill cost me 10 evolution points. I was surprised, but good thing I had enough. Evolution points increase by 1 with every level up. Monsters use them to enhance themselves. But I might be the only one spending dozens just to look like a human. Since then, I've fought several more battles. Before I knew it, I'd reached level 99. Species, Mandragora, unique, level 99 vitality, a magic, unmeasurable. Skills, voice spread, medicine creation, status display, diversification, evolution points, 32, description. A top-grade Mandragora grown in dragon-infused soil and saturated with magic. As a material, it can create any known potion, but it has grown powerful by consuming countless other monsters. It is impossible to capture. Its voice is a guaranteed curse-induced death. Countermeasures are essential. It mimics the appearance of a human to lower defenses approaching before spreading its voice to attack from unseen distances. Can replicate and extract properties from various plants to create a wide range of chemical compounds and afflict enemies with status conditions. Engaging it without perfect resistance to both curses and status effects is inadvisable. A threat to humanity, a disaster-class monster. Unless you are a hero, you should run for your life. Wow? That's a seriously villainous-sounding description. Also, who exactly is this written for? Still, I thought I looked pretty human by now. Is it still that scary? I peered into the pool of lotus flowers. It resembled Monet's pond, beautiful and clear. These lotuses were highly toxic, so there were no fish or animals, making the water remarkably pristine. It reflected my image clearly, if not quite like a real mirror. Back when I looked like a cursed doll, my hair was a wild mess of brambles. Now I had sleek, glossy locks with soft waves. Well, they were technically vines, but they looked like hair. The colors faded from green to pink in a gentle gradient, which was just the natural pigment of the vine. It gave off a slightly mystical vibe, but I figured I could pass it off as dyed hair. I had adjusted my height too, using the humans I'd seen as reference. 1 point didn't add much, so I'd spent 10 just to reach a height about 1.5 heads shorter than those men. Any more than that felt like a waste of points, so I'd stopped there. If I ended up too short for a human woman, I could just wear heels or something. Besides, I doubted I'd gain more levels, so I wanted to conserve my points. Yeah, when I first hit human height, I looked like a cursed mannequin. It was terrifying, like something out of a haunted mall. It had been impossible to show myself to anyone. After that, I carefully adjusted my skin tone, removed the webbing between my fingers, and reshaped my face and limbs to finally resemble a person. That alone had eaten up more than 10 points. Minor inconsistencies could be hidden with clothes and flowers. Speaking of clothes, yeah, they're not bad, considering the water's reflection. Once I had a recognizably feminine, human-like body, I had to deal with the issue of clothing. My conclusion, if it doesn't exist, make it. I could grow and manipulate plants freely, after all. Clothes are made from plant fibers, right? I could replicate that. So I roamed the forest, sampling all sorts of plants to find the best materials for clothing. Once I found them, I sprouted them from my head and wove them into fabric. But when I tried to separate those fine vine strands, it was painful. With just 1 or 2, it was tolerable. But hundreds, thousands were agony. I gave up on removing them. In the end, the clothes I wore were still connected to the base of my hair. I increased the volume of my hair to about waist length to cover everything, so it shouldn't be noticeable. I've got to minimize exposed skin. One touch and I might suck the life out of someone. I designed a form-fitting green dress. It was simple, so I sprouted a few flowers on it for decoration. Okay, sure. It looked a bit too floral, but it was still within human norms. People would just assume I was really into flowers. More importantly, gloves. They extended from my sleeves all the way to the fingertips, hiding my root hands entirely. People might wonder how I got dressed like that, but I couldn't risk showing my bare skin. Thanks to experiments with monster corpses, I knew that interacting through vines or clothes wouldn't trigger absorption, so even if I touched someone, as long as it was through the vines, they'd be safe. It made for a rather eccentric fashion style, but that was fine. Better to be seen as weird than accidentally killing someone. I even figured out how to control the screaming. I should be safe blending in with humans now. Being a Mandragora had made me absurdly timid. I would scream at the slightest surprise, so I created a lid over my vocal organs. Unless I consciously chose to speak, it stayed shut, preventing accidental screams. The downside was that I couldn't reflexively scream in self-defense anymore, but it was a small price to pay to avoid hurting people. What's more, the lid would clamp shut even tighter when I wanted to scream, pulling my face into a strained, unnatural smile. So in situations where I wanted to scream, I'd end up grinning. I repeatedly told myself it probably wouldn't be too creepy. Probably, all right, then time to head for the human realm. Of course, I had no idea where that was. But this place was clearly highland terrain, so I decided to follow a river downhill. Humans need water to survive, so they usually build settlements near rivers. Assuming humans in this world weren't vastly different from the ones I knew, I'd eventually find a village or town. When I meet someone, what should I say first? A greeting? Crap. I'd completely forgotten how to interact with people. I'd just been screaming and running around. Maybe I should practice a bit first. As I walked along the stream, I noticed a rabbit peering at me from the bushes. It was a monster-type rabbit, with strange horn-like shapes poking out. Poorly hidden. Might as well use this for practice. I tried speaking in the gentlest voice I could manage. Oh my! Why in such a place? No, wait. That wasn't right. I should have started with something like, hello, let me redo that. Before I could open my mouth again, the rabbit's horns flopped sideways and it collapsed. Wait, was that not a scream? Just regular speech? It still killed it. Mandragora screams cause unconsciousness or death. I thought it was only the screaming that was dangerous. Maybe I was wrong. There was a small chance the rabbit was playing dead. When something dies from a mandragora's voice, their chest area turns dark black, so I moved closer to check the body in the bushes. If the rabbit really died from that, it would mean that I can't speak in front of others. Leave me alone. Beyond the rabbit, a human lay on the ground covered in blood. Wait, did he hear my voice just now? Isn't this bad? Chapter 6. Oh no! This person is going to die! I immediately rushed to the man's side and crouched down. He looked like he'd been attacked by a monster and was already on the verge of death. If my voice ended up delivering the final blow, that death would be on me. As expected, I didn't want to kill a human. I unbuttoned his blood-soaked shirt to inspect the wound. While it was drenched in red, there was no black mark. That meant my voice hadn't affected him. Maybe he hadn't heard it, or maybe he had some kind of resistance. Whatever the reason, it looked like I hadn't killed him. But the gash in his chest was deep, and blood kept pouring out. Then the man slowly opened his eyes. One was a blood-red hue, the other a rich gold, a striking pair of mismatched eyes. Our gazes briefly met. What a pointless life. This was no time to be relieved. He was losing blood fast and barely breathing. His consciousness was slipping. If nothing was done, he would surely die. He's already spitting lines like someone who had already accepted the end. Just like me in my last life, I want to save him if I can. Back then, I died all alone on top of a pile of trash. A death so miserable I hated remembering it. But this person, while dying on his own, was found by me. The only thing I could do was generate medicine and give it to him. But that was still better than nothing. Thanks to my diversification skill, I could reproduce any plant I'd touched. The forest I was born in had been lush. I'd absorbed plenty of flora. I should be able to craft something far more effective than my first healing potion. Okay, the best combination for a high-grade healing potion, something that can close wounds and restore strength. Mixing herbs inside my body was instinctual, difficult to put into words. I fused several plants until I reached a mixture that couldn't be improved any further. When I checked the result with my status display, it read, Elixir Complete Recovery. The description confirmed it. The highest quality healing agent possible. If this didn't save him, nothing would. I gently lifted his head and placed it on my lap. Essentially a lap pillow. I'd grown some flowers there for extra cushioning. Now all I had to do was get the elixir into him. I opened my mouth to pour it out. Wait, no. I can't just dribble liquid out of my mouth like that. That would be a crazy thing for a human to do. I slammed my mouth shut just in time. That was close. 1 second later, and I would have been that weirdo dumping mystery liquid onto a dying man's face. I'd gotten into the habit of spewing poison from my mouth during fights lately, so it was second nature to eject fluids that way. But no way could I do that to a human. Okay, think, where can I release it from? It's starting to build up in my mouth and, wait, I've got it. If I didn't hurry, it'd start leaking from my nose or ears, and that was absolutely unacceptable. So instead, I chose my eyes. Eye drops are less gross than drool or earwax, right? I wasn't sure how coherent he was. But if he did survive, I didn't want to leave him with some nightmarish memory of a creepy plant lady oozing mystery fluid from every orifice. Okay, through the eyes. My eyes weren't those hollow haniwa pits anymore. They were now modeled after human eyes, though technically they were plant-based fruit growing in my sockets. I assumed they'd make excellent ingredients if harvested. Since I wasn't human, I could regrow them indefinitely. Not that I had any intention of harvesting them. I leaned over him, letting droplets fall from my eyes onto his lips. It was ridiculously difficult to aim. I thought about pouring it directly into the wound instead, but, he drank it, and his wound's closing. Just as I hoped, the elixir was working. The bloodstains remained, but the gaping injury visibly sealed. His breathing calmed. Apparently, restoring his strength triggered a deep sleep. He began breathing quietly, eyes closed. I considered staying with him until he woke up, but just talking might kill someone. I wasn't sure I could explain what had happened or even safely communicate. Is he one of those guys I saw in the forest earlier? I feel like one of them had hair like this. Now that I got a good look, he did seem familiar. Probably one of the knights I spotted entering the woods. He didn't seem to be affected by my voice, but the rabbit monster nearby definitely hadn't made it. So the rabbit died, which means even speaking is deadly. Why didn't it work on him, though? Maybe he had anti-Mandragora protection or something. I checked on him again, white gold hair, up close. His face was astonishingly well-formed. I wished I could have shaped my own features this precisely, but I'd had only a water surface to work with. Who knew how I actually looked? Should I really just leave him here? I know. I'll make a monster repellent and spray it around, or better, apply it directly to his clothes. That should protect him on the way back. I generated the repellent inside my body. Using my eyes was slow and inefficient, but I still refused to use my mouth or ears. It just wasn't human. I cupped my hands and let my tears slowly collect there, then gently applied the repellent all over his body. Since I'm a plant-type monster, the scent doesn't bother me, but meat-eating monsters hate it. They'll stay away for a while. Please get home safely. We might never meet again, but still. With that final thought, I went my way. And after following the river south for several days, at long last, I found it. A Human Settlement, Chapter 6.5, Leonhardt. Leonhardt was the captain of the first unit of the Holy Knights, an elite order specializing in subjugation and containment of monsters. That he held such a position at the young age of 20 was not solely due to his combat prowess. I used to envy your curse immunity, but I take it back. Just be careful out there, Leonhardt. Ritter, captain of the second unit, was usually a jovial man who loved to tease, but this time he gripped Leonhardt's shoulder firmly, his expression uncharacteristically serious. His concern was palpable. This mission Leonhardt would undertake alone. The monster territory they had visited on Nikolaus's orders just days ago was reportedly undergoing rapid changes. Undead monsters had begun to emerge, and Leonhardt, with his curse immunity, had been assigned to investigate. Of all monster attacks, curses were among the most troublesome. They bypassed physical defenses, and even with resistance potions or spells, high-level curses could not be fully blocked. Leonhardt, whose body completely nullified curses, was a rare exception, making him particularly effective against undead. It was this power that earned him his rank at such a young age. It's not so much that I'm curse immune, it's just that other curses don't stick because of this one. Leonhardt had already been cursed. The curse dwelling in his left eye rejected all other curses, not through immunity but incompatibility. Only a few knew this truth. Ritter, rest assured, I'll find the unusual Mandragora you said you saw. That super curvy Mandragora? Yeah, I am curious, but seriously, stay safe. With a smile, Leonhardt said his farewells. Ritter watched him go with a mix of exasperation and sincere respect. No one even thinks it's just a facade. I also don't want to go somewhere as dangerous as a monster territory. In the monster territory, anything could happen. Monsters engaged in brutal survival competitions, evolving at a terrifying pace. It had been peaceful a month ago, but that would likely no longer be the case. And indeed, it was far more dangerous than before. Undead, especially the corpse-type monsters, were everywhere. Blunt or slashing weapons had little effect. Only fire or light magic worked well. Since light magic drained magic power quickly, Leonhardt relied on fire spells. This number is outrageous. How could it get this bad in merely 1 month? Even Leonhardt, with his well-suited magic affinity and curse immunity, couldn't push much deeper into the monster territory. Corpse-type monsters are formed from the cursed dead animals or monsters who died from curses. They swarmed at him relentlessly. But where had so many corpses come from? I have to report back. But the numbers overwhelmed him. His magic ran dry. Poisoned claws tore into his chest. He fought back with his sword, barely escaped with his life, only to collapse on the way. Corpse monsters usually stay near their death site. It seemed he'd managed to escape the monster zone. No more undead were nearby, but he had lost too much blood. He could feel his body temperature dropping. Death was near. Oh my, why in such a place? A clear, gentle female voice, unfittingly relaxed for a monster-infested region. They were still far from any settlement. Why was a human here? He rasped, trying to say, "Leave me," but his voice was too weak. The woman knelt beside him, inspecting his chest wound. He thought she might help, but he opened his eyes and the woman saw his left eye. I'm done for. Leonhardt's left eye bore a powerful curse. Anyone who saw it, no matter if they were close or just strangers, would come to hate and loathe him. It was known as the Devil's Eye, extremely powerful and absolutely unbreakable curse. What a pointless life it was. He was cursed from birth. At first, it apparently was only somewhat eerie. As a baby, he was taken to the church where they discovered the truth. The curse grew stronger with time, starting to amplify negative feelings and hatred of the people around him. By age 10, he became unable to bear abuse from his own parents, who came near to killing him, forcing him to escape from home. He ran away, hiding his eye, and somehow survived. He joined the Holy Knights because it was a position where one's background didn't matter, and because it was admired. If I just acted like the ideal knight, hid my eye, and treated others kindly, I thought maybe they would love me. Looking back, I was such a fool. He always wore an eye patch. People thought he lost the eye fighting monsters. They admired his valor and kindness. They called him a knight among knights, but if being honest, it wasn't him. It was just a role that he played constantly to have others like him. It felt simply vain.
Is she going to finish me off? His head was lifted not to choke, but to rest on something soft. There was no one around to do such a thing but that woman. When he opened his eyes, the woman was peering down at him. She opened her mouth as if to speak, but bit her lip. She had seen the eye. She should hate him if she is able to pity and care for him despite that. She has to be an insanely gentle soul. She's beautiful. Is this what a goddess looks like? With her serene beauty and floral scent, she seemed like a forest goddess. Her soft green hair filtered the light like a leafy sunshade, comforting and cool. Black pearl-like eyes shimmered with golden-tinted tears as they welled up and fell onto his face.
To be mourned by someone like her, it wouldn't be a bad way to go. Even her tears were beautiful. Leonhardt never imagined someone would cry for him after seeing his cursed eye. One tear fell onto his lips. It was sweet, not salty. Was he hallucinating? Am I going crazy because I'm about to die? Somehow it's oddly pleasant. Drowsiness overtook him, his consciousness leaving him. So this is death, huh? It's not that bad. And the moment he thought so, stopping trying to stay awake, he suddenly came to his senses. He shot up, gasping, checked his body. His clothes were soaked with blood, but there wasn't a single wound. His stamina and magic had fully returned. He could make it back safely. What just happened? Where is that person, the beautiful woman who cried over him? He looked around. No sign of her. Hallucination? No, there's a sweet scent. Monster repellent and strong. She really did save me. The lingering fragrance on his body proved it. But who? What was she? She didn't seem human, a goddess descending to save someone. Unlikely, but still, whatever it was, it felt beyond human. No use thinking about it now. I need to return and report. I was saved by a miracle. Leonhardt stood, scanned the area once more, then took off running. If it hadn't been an illusion, he was sure they would meet again. Chapter 7. Those lights. That's not a goblin settlement. That's probably a human village. As I crested a gentle hill, I spotted a cluster of lights in the distance, too orderly to be a monster den. They had to be human homes. It was already past sunset, so I decided to wait until morning to approach. A stranger showing up at night would just look suspicious. Plus, I still couldn't speak. Visiting during daylight, when I could at least flash a friendly smile, might make things go more smoothly. All right then, guess I'll camp out here tonight. I can't wait for tomorrow. To camp like a proper human, I started gathering firewood. Mandragoras don't actually need it, but a normal person would use fire for light and warmth while camping. I could see just fine in the dark. Of course, I didn't need light, but a human hanging around in pitch darkness with no fire or lamp would be unsettling. Up until now, I'd moved about freely regardless of time, but with a human settlement nearby, I had to be careful not to get spotted. I could use a lamp flower for light, sure, but it's still cold at night, and having a fire feels more natural, right? Lamp flowers are one of the plants I've absorbed. Each one resembles a lily of the valley, about the size of 2 fists, glowing like a lantern. According to my status display skill, humans sometimes use them as portable lights too. While gathering firewood, I used a lamp flower to light my way. I grew one at the tip of my vine hand and plucked it with a pop. Ow, yep. Still hurts. I wish I could do that without pain. The moment I thought that, a ping chimed in my head and a message appeared. Pain nullification acquired. Oops. I'd been trying to avoid spending evolution points since leveling up any further. Seemed unlikely, but I'd just accidentally triggered another skill. 10 points gone. That's the downside of a monster's body. Wish for it, and evolution happens whether you mean to or not. Well, whatever. I mean, pain sucks, so it's probably for the best. Let's just call it a necessary evolution. With the lamp flower in one hand, I continued collecting firewood. I'd gathered quite a bit when I noticed something strange. A clump of filthy fur was lying on the ground. On closer inspection, it was breathing alive. A dog, tongue lolling out, the fur ball lay still. It had 4 legs, not a lump of fuzz, but some kind of animal. If memory served, it looked like a long-haired dog. I set the firewood down and picked up the dog instead. Shining the lamp flower on it, I could see it was in terrible shape. Maybe sick, definitely weakened. A dog, huh? Sick animals probably don't taste very good, and besides, as someone who used to be Japanese, I have certain ethical hesitations about eating dogs. Oh, I know. I'll make it a pet. Dogs are deeply connected with humans. Keeping a dog is an incredibly human thing to do. Even if I looked a little odd, having a dog with me might make me seem more relatable. It's weak, but if I give it a healing potion and keep it warm, it'll probably recover. Gotta thank this body for being able to produce full recovery potions on demand. I wasn't sure how to administer the potion, but it is a dog. Dripping medicine from the mouth might be weird when dealing with a person, but with a dog, it should be fine. Using my diversification skill, I grew a plant with a hollow stem like a straw, and with a bit of careful maneuvering via vine control, I slipped the stem into the dog's mouth and poured the potion in from my own. I briefly considered just putting my mouth on it directly, but touching it that way might trigger my absorption. My face is technically the root zone, probably better not to let living creatures make contact there. Though really, it's not even a proper mouth, I eat with my hands. After all, the mouth I have is just a hole on the root side that lets me emit voice or medicine. I don't eat through it, and it doesn't produce saliva. Maybe because this body isn't human. I didn't feel any discomfort doing that. It kind of feels like my human sensibilities are slipping away. Still, for most injuries or ailments, this potion should be enough. The dog should be feeling better by tomorrow. Let's get a fire going so it can stay warm. I stacked the firewood I'd gathered and was just about to light it when I realized I didn't have a way to start the fire. Honestly, humans really do rely on a lot of tools. Fire. Maybe I can use firecracker grass? I grew a fruit of the firecracker grass at the end of my hair and plucked it. Thanks to the pain nullification skill, I didn't feel a thing. It made harvesting way more efficient. My remaining points were down to about 20 now, but I still think it was a good skill to have. The firecracker grass produces fruits that, when crushed, spark like fireworks. Humans use them as fire starters. But since I can freely manipulate any plant I create, I just had to command it to ignite. I placed the fruit on the ground, rebuilt the firewood over it, and mentally instructed it to explode. Sparks flew up within the pile, catching the wood, fire complete. I wonder if that's warm enough. Maybe I should make a bed for the dog, too. A bed of grass would be nice. I created some seeds for a soft turf-like plant and dropped them to the ground. Plants born via diversification grow even after leaving my body, as if they're extensions of me. I can guide their shape, even control them a little. It's pretty handy. I had them grow in a dense cluster, forming a soft, fluffy bed. Then I gently laid the dog on top. I can just wither this grass tomorrow to get rid of the evidence. First, let's focus on helping the dog recover. How do I get it to like me? Food usually does the trick. Tomorrow I might try hunting some animals or monsters nearby. I can't use my voice to attack, so maybe I'll make some plant-based traps. Come to think of it, I'm getting hungry too. This dog could technically be an emergency ration, but I'd rather not eat something I just saved. Thinking about all that, I sat down beside the dog on its grassy bed. Honestly, burying myself in the ground would have been comfier, but that might look suspicious. If a human saw me half buried, they might think I was some kind of mummified monk. So I sat upright, closed my eyes, and rested till morning, listening to the crackle of the fire. Is it morning already? How's the dog? Wah. And then when I looked over in the morning, the dog was gone, and in its place was sleeping a completely naked child. The shock caused me to let out a scream, silently inside my mind. Chapter 8. Why? It was a dog, right? The ball of fluff I picked up yesterday was definitely a dog. But now, curled up and sleeping against me, is unmistakably a naked child. Startled, I let out a scream, but the lid I crafted absorbs the vibration and muffles the sound. I can feel the tissue around my face pulling tight into a fixed smile. Ah! The child opened his eyes with a blink. Our eyes met squarely, so I couldn't just run away now. Under his messy brown hair, bright sky-blue eyes stare steadily up at me. On his head are the same animal ears I saw yesterday, and a tail sprouts from above his butt. Probably, surely. This boy must be the dog I picked up yesterday. I have no idea how a dog turned into a human, though. Thank you very much. I can't speak without risking his life, so I simply stare back, unsure of what to do. The dog boy gives me a confused look at my lack of response. I'm not ignoring you. If I talk, I might kill you. What now? As I silently gaze down at him, the boy shyly curls into a ball, hugging his knees. Oh, right. Humans get embarrassed when they're naked, and he must be cold too. In that case, I should make him some clothes. Time to show I'm a kind person. I wove a simple outfit from vines grown at my fingertips and tore it off to hand it to him. Since his sense of pain is blocked, it doesn't hurt. The boy looked up at me, wide-eyed in surprise. Oh no. Humans don't make clothes like this. Living as a human is a distant memory now, so I instinctively did something way too easy. Can I bluff my way out? If not, well, I'd rather not go down that mental path. That was plant manipulation magic, wasn't it? Are you witch-sama? Witch-sama? That word told me there were humans who could do what I just did. If that's the case, I should roll with it. Ah, yes, that's right, I'm a witch-sama. Totally a witch-sama. I nod solemnly. The kid seems to have accepted this explanation. Phew, safe. But even though he looks delighted with the clothes I gave him, he doesn't try to put them on. Is he hesitant because they were made with strange magic? If I wear them, I'll get them dirty, even though you made them for me, witch-sama. His ears and tail droop, giving off the air of a forlorn puppy. I could almost hear a pitiful whine, whimper. He is indeed filthy. For hygiene reasons alone, I should wash him. Cleaning up is always a good idea. It's not that cold right now, so a quick bath should be doable. I beckoned the boy to follow and led him to the riverbank, growing a loofah-like plant from my fingers. I tore it off and handed it to him. Seems he understood I meant for him to wash with it. He took it and stepped into the river to help warm him up. I began preparing a fire nearby. Since I'm a witch-sama, it's apparently not strange for me to conjure plants at will, so I used fire-starting herbs and grew resin-rich wood to light up. This witch-sama cover story is super convenient. Even if I act a little non-human, it's fine as long as I'm a witch-sama. I might have really lucked out, picking up this dog-like kid before heading into a human village. Thanks to this child, I learned how I come across to humans. Turns out I don't have to force myself to act human. I can use some of my abilities openly. I'm grateful for that. While the child bathed, I wove fabric, and then, once he emerged shivering, sat him by the fire and dried him with the cloth. He stayed very still the entire time. Once dry and clean, he finally slipped into the clothes. His fluffy tail wagged, looking quite pleased. Witch-sama. My name is Noelle. What's your name? He's asking for my name. That's when I realized I don't have one. My status just says Mandragora, unique. It used to say mutant, but now that I'm level 99, it's unique. I'm not entirely sure what the difference is. Besides hearing Noelle's name, I get the feeling something Japanese-sounding would stand out here. My real name, Misaki Hanazono, probably wouldn't go over well. Not that I can talk anyway. I wonder if they can read Japanese, though. As I ponder with a finger on my chin, Noelle hurriedly waves his hands in apology. Oh, sorry, I forgot witches only share their names with those they truly trust. I won't ask again. Oh, is that how it works? Thank you for saving me. And, I don't have a home anymore or family. Clutching the hem of his clothes, Noel begins to cry. I still don't know if he's a dog or a human, but he's definitely a child. Seeing a child cry hurts. When I was a kid, I'd get scolded and told to stop crying if I ever did. I don't know what happened, but it seems like he really has nowhere to go. Once he calms down, I should take him to that village. Having a human kid with me will make me seem more human too, and maybe Noel can explain things nicely. Hopefully I won't get accused of kidnapping. That thought scares me a bit, so to make absolutely sure he doesn't say she kidnapped me, I decide to be even gentler. I quietly embrace him. I made sure not to let Noel's ears or anything else touch my face. I held his head under my chest, just to be safe. I need to check later what happens if a living creature touches my face. I held Noel in my arms until he stopped crying. The tears soaking into my clothes tasted oddly good, reminding me I was a bit hungry. I also remembered that I'd once considered absorbing this kid, thinking he was a dog, and internally let out a short, horrified scream. That was close. I nearly became a murderous Mandragora. Chapter 8.5 Noel. Noel had lived a happy life in a beastkin village, lacking for nothing. The beastkin were a physically strong race who bore the traits and abilities of animals other than humans, but precisely because they bore traits of both man and beast, the normals, the human race, didn't view them kindly. Sometimes they were called demi-humans. That's why beastkin often lived far from human settlements, forming their own villages. Noel's home was one of them. There used to be lots of the demon kind around, you know. Life was easier for beastkin back then. The demon kind? Yeah. If it was a woman, they called her a witch sama. If it was a man, a sorcerer. They had powerful magic, never aged, and lived much longer than us. They gathered knowledge and didn't discriminate by race. It used to be a great honor for a beastkin to serve one of the demon kind. Noel often heard these stories from his parents, about how the demon kind had been wiped out in a war with dragons about 500 years ago, leaving behind only one survivor. Until then, many demon kind had lived, and the beastkin had thrived under their protection. But once the demon kind disappeared, those left behind were mostly races that discriminated against beastkin, making life harder than ever. That one surviving member of the demon kind now served the king. So it was said a beastkin would likely never meet them. The demon kind, the witches, the sorcerers. I want to meet one. From that point on, Noah listened eagerly to stories about the demon kind from the village elders. He learned that they often specialized in one type of magic and were known by that specialty, that they rarely revealed their true names, only to those they truly trusted, if at all. They sounded incredible in every tale. To think there was only one left, it made him feel lonely, but also filled him with a quiet hope that he might meet them someday. Noel's peaceful life came to a sudden end when a deadly illness began to spread. One by one, people in the village died, adults and children alike, without warning. Within a week, fewer than 10 remained, including Noel. Those still alive, terrified of the disease, fled the village. His parents had died too. Noel left as well, but he was already infected. His body rejected food and water, and he couldn't keep anything down. It's over. Just as his body gave out, some deep beastkin survival instinct kicked in and he transformed. His family were wolf beastkin, so he turned into a wolf. But even in that form, his weakened state left him helpless. He collapsed to the ground, unable to move, waiting to die. And then he saw a soft, glowing light. Someone picked up his filthy, collapsed body without hesitation, cradling him in gentle arms. In the dim light, he saw a breathtakingly beautiful woman. Her dark, glassy eyes looked down at him calmly. So pretty, like a doll. She looked just like those delicate dolls a traveling merchant once showed off. She pulled out a rod from somewhere and placed one end in his mouth. Then she put the other end in hers, and then a sweet liquid began to flow into his mouth. Sweet juice? Is she doing this because I can't drink on my own? Holding it in her mouth to feed me? But he thought he would throw it up again, but strangely this liquid stayed down. The moment he drank it, his body felt lighter. The nausea, the fatigue, the chills all faded, leaving only drowsiness behind. Did she save me? Could she be a witch, Sama? Could she be that last surviving member of the demon kind? Even though he was a dirty beastkin child, she held him gently and tried to help. Only the demon kind were said to treat beastkin without prejudice. Held in her arms like a cradle, gently swaying, Noel fell asleep. When he next awoke, her beautiful smile was there to greet him, smiling softly, looking down at him as he opened his eyes. Thank you very much. He managed to say it, but she only kept smiling in silence. He wondered why she was staring, and then he realized, my clothes. They're gone. After turning into a beast, his clothes had slipped off, and he hadn't had the strength or awareness to pick them up again. He was completely naked, and being seen like that made him curl up in shame. While he was doing that, the woman began to move her hands, almost as if knitting. But she had no yarn, no needles, and yet clothing began to form between her hands. This is magic. In no time at all, clothes just his size appeared. Still smiling, she held them out to him. They smelled faintly of grass, likely made from plants. She had used magic to control plants and make these clothes. That was plant magic, wasn't it? Are you a witch, Sama? He had dreamed of meeting one, someone who could use magic freely, even without incantation. His words were clumsy with excitement, but she only smiled and nodded. She's really a witch, Sama. They really exist. The clothes she gave him were simple, but to him, they were more precious than treasure. But he was so dirty. He didn't want to ruin them. Just as he thought that, the witch Sama beckoned him over and led him to the river. In her hand was a plant that looked like a sponge. She must mean for him to wash. Will she still be there when I come back? Worried she might vanish, Noel kept glancing toward her as he bathed, but she remained right there, tending a fire by the river. Even that fire was strange. She made unfamiliar plants appear and ignited them directly. This witch Sama must have mastered plant magic. I wonder what her name is. When he finished washing and came out of the water, she was there waiting. She gently dried him off with a cloth. She really didn't seem to have any prejudice against beastkin. She was kind. Witch Sama, my name is Noel, and you are. He wanted to know her name, to say it out loud. But when he saw her tilt her head, finger to her chin, as if troubled, he remembered witches don't reveal their real names, only to those they truly trust. She had only helped a dying child out of kindness. They weren't that close. He quickly apologized. Since she controls plants. Maybe she's the plant witch Sama, but flowers really suit her. She wore so many lovely, fragrant flowers. The flower witch Sama seemed a more fitting title. Thanks to this kind and beautiful flower witch Sama, Noel had been saved. But I don't have a home or a family anymore. His village was gone. His family was gone. Even if he'd been saved, he couldn't return to his old life. Maybe this kind witch Sama would let him serve her if he asked. I don't know how else to live. I'll ask her. He wanted to tell her, I have nowhere else to go. Let me serve you. Let me repay you. But the grief overwhelmed him and he couldn't get the words out. Sobbing, Noel felt her wrap her arms around him. Her hand rested gently on his head. Who else would treat an unknown beastkin child so kindly? I'll make sure to be useful to you. I swear I'll repay you. With that silent vow, he cried, wrapped in the flower witch Sama's warmth. Then, just as he tried to lift his head, he realized the thing resting on his head wasn't her hand. It was her large chest. Wait, what? I thought it was her hand chest. Turns out, they aren't that soft. Chapter 9. After Noel finally stopped crying, I gently let him go. He was fidgety, clearly embarrassed. That's common for little boys after they've been seen crying. Maybe a good meal will cheer him up. Human food, huh? Maybe I can catch a fish or something. As I fashioned a fishing rod from conjured plants, Noel tugged lightly at the hem of my clothes. Incidentally, the clothes are made from vines I grew. They're still connected to me so I can feel it when he touches them. If I wanted to, I could sever the connection, especially now that pain is disabled. But keeping the clothes as vine extensions allows me to grow plants from my sleeves, making it look like I'm casting magic by hand. Better not to cut them yet. Witch Sama, if you're planning to catch fish from the river, I'd suggest against it. Lately, many of them have been poisonous. Oh, really? Then I guess no fish. But it'd be a waste to scrap the rod, so, just then I spotted a bird flying overhead. I flicked the rod and sent the vine line upward, snaring the bird. With a tug, I reeled in a bird wrapped tightly in vines, dangling from the rod and unable to move. Whoa, as expected of the witch Sama, so it was a magical bird-catching tool all along. It wasn't, but he's looking at me with such awe. I'll just smile and nod. Noel seems to believe I'm some amazing witch Sama, so I figure I might as well go along with it. I had caught the bird but had no idea how to prepare it. After all, just touching things feeds me. But Noel, despite the dog-like ears and tail, was still human. He'd know, right? I detached the vine from the rod and handed him the bound bird. You're entrusting me with the job? Well, I'm a wolf beastkin, so I'm great at handling animals. I'll make sure to clean it properly. For some reason, he seemed overjoyed, clutching the vine with a wagging tail. I didn't quite get it, but I smiled and nodded. Wait, he's a wolf beastkin, not a dog. The knight I saw earlier had normal ears and no tail, so maybe this world has various kinds of humans. And since he keeps calling me a witch Sama, maybe witches are considered a race that specializes in magic. I'll need to learn the norms humans live by here. Pretending to be one is going to be tough. But maybe not being able to speak is actually a good thing. It means I won't slip up in conversation. Ah, witch Sama, where are you going? Don't worry, just preparing food. Noel looked up at me nervously, so I smiled at him and patted his head, then pointed at the bird. I just need to get something to eat for myself. Nothing to worry about. You want me to keep preparing the bird? Got it, I'll wait for you. What a good kid. He's really good at picking up on what I mean. He still looked a little uneasy being left alone, but I patted his head again and his tail gave a little wag. Leaving him behind, I walked away from the river into the woods. Once I was far enough that Noel couldn't see me at all, I checked the surroundings. Grower. That scared the life out of me. I came to look for something edible, but a huge creature suddenly leapt out of the bushes, startling me. If I hadn't sealed my voice, I would have screamed loud enough to kill Noel back at the river. It looked like a bear-type monster, black and white like a panda, if I had to compare it to anything from my world. But with bared fangs and drool dripping everywhere, it was anything but cute. It roared with intense hostility, clearly seeing me as prey. Predatory monsters always charge me right away. I guess I look human and weak to them. Something about me must look delicious to beasts. Thanks to that, I've never had much trouble finding food. If there are beasts near the village, I could just keep hunting like this to get by. Though I still need to find out whether human food works for me too. As the monster lunged, I extended the vine I treat as my hair and entangled it. Locking its joints, I lifted it into the air, immobilized. All right, let's test something. I pressed my cheek gently against the bear's belly. I tasted it. Yes, flavor. The bear withered and went limp almost immediately. Yep, the face still functions as a root. I really need to make sure no humans ever touch it. Once I'd eaten, I quickly returned to Noel. When I got back, the bird had been fully plucked and gutted, ready for cooking. Seems he'd washed it in the river too. Neither he nor the bird were bloodied. I heard some kind of terrifying monster. It's okay. It's gone now. Which Sama did you know it was there and go to take it down? That wasn't the case at all. I had internally screamed in panic, but Noel was looking up at me with sparkling sky-blue eyes. Let's just leave it at that, as expected of the witch Sama. I've finished preparing the bird. How shall we cook it? Oh right, we don't have any cookware. For now, let's roast it. Ah, got it! I'll roast it! I pointed at the fire and Noel understood. He skewered the pieces on branches and began roasting them. He tore the bird apart bare-handed, so his claws must be razor-sharp. He did say he was good at it. He really understands me, even without words. Maybe being quiet isn't such a problem. Noel doesn't seem to mind. Witch Sama, you're not very talkative, are you? Scratch that. He did mind. We'd been alone together this whole time, and I hadn't said a single word. It's no wonder he's suspicious. As I silently screamed in panic, my face stayed fixed in a smile. That's just how this body works. Chapter 10. Of course, he'd find it strange that I hadn't spoken a word all this time. It was suspicious, no doubt. I kept my face smiling, but inside I was panicking, scrambling to come up with an excuse. Is it because of a magic cost? That's what it is, isn't it? Wait, what? I heard it from the elder once, that witches and sorcerers sometimes sacrifice something of their own to push their magic to its limits. Did you give up your voice, Witch Sama? Apparently witches and sorcerers, people who use magic, sometimes give up a part of themselves in exchange for power. That's terrifying. I couldn't help letting my expression darken a little. I'm really glad I'm a monster who can grow stronger using evolution points without giving anything up. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bring up something painful. It's not like I lost my voice for real, but Noel had misunderstood my silence, and now he was bowing his head in a panic. I hadn't actually lost it. It's just that using it could kill people, so I don't say anything. But the result is similar. Still, it's not like I lost it completely, and it is also not something one has to be sad about. To show that he didn't need to worry, I patted his head. You're so kind, Witch Sama. If you can't speak, then I'll talk to people on your behalf. Oh, that's a big help. You mean when we get to the village, you'll explain I'm a nice Witch Sama, right? If things went on like this, I wouldn't be accused of kidnapping, surely. I smiled and took Noel's hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. It was a silent gesture asking him to help me win over the people of the settlement. If Noel introduced me as a kind Witch Sama, maybe I could avoid being seen as suspicious. No one would ever guess I was actually a plant monster, just a Mandragora shaped like a human. This way, I'll totally be able to live among humans, or so I thought. But then something unexpected happened. Just before our meal, Noel began to look unwell again. Thinking the potion hadn't fully cured him, I had him eat some meat laced with the restorative elixir. After that, I took him with me to visit the village, but what greeted us was an eerie silence. Despite it being broad daylight, not a soul was in sight. Last night I'd seen lights on, so the place shouldn't be abandoned. Then why was it so quiet? Don't tell me everyone's hiding because they're afraid of a suspicious person. Small villages like this can be closed off and wary of outsiders. Maybe they saw me, a stranger, and decided to hole up indoors. Still, I figured at least one person might be out and about. We entered the village and walked down the path. That's when Noel gripped my hand tightly, his expression troubled. This smell, Witch Sama, this is... You smell something? I don't really have much of a sense of smell. Noelle was a wolf beastkin canine with a sharp nose. I, on the other hand, am a plant. I probably have worse than human olfactory ability. I couldn't pick up whatever scent he was noticing. Ah, there's a child lying there not moving. Are they dead? In front of one house, I spotted a young girl collapsed face down. Vomit was splattered around her. I rushed over and picked her up. Thankfully, she was still breathing, but her skin was dry and limp. Dehydration. It's the same illness as in my village. I'm sure the others here are all. It seemed the disease had spread to this place as well. Most of the villagers might be infected and too weak to move. If that's the case, living here isn't going to be an option. I wonder how many people are even left. Wait, what if everyone dies? Won't people start saying that the village perished because of the witch's curse? I still don't know how witches are perceived in this world, but in most fantasy settings they're usually treated as villains. If I'm misunderstood before I can prove I'm good, I may never be able to clear that stigma. That would be bad, very bad. Since it's the same illness Noelle had, then the full recovery potion should cure it too. The question is, how do I give it to her? With Noelle, I'd thought he was a dog, so I'd used a straw to deliver the potion mouth to mouth. But I can't exactly do that with a human girl, especially not children, the elderly, or strangers. It would look like I'm spitting into their mouths. If word got out, people would say, what a disgusting thing to do, and I'd be shunned or worse. If I end up having to move to another village, I don't want to carry a bad reputation with me. Let's see, the potion comes from the holes in the root part. In other words, eyes, ears, nose, mouth, but no matter where it comes from, it's going to look like body fluid. And if people know it comes from my face, they'll be too grossed out to drink it. Maybe I should make a new opening somewhere else for it. The real question is, where should the potion dispensing hole go? As I was thinking, the girl in my arms grew noticeably weaker. I didn't have time to hesitate. Oh no, I don't have time to deliberate. For now, I'll use tears like I did with the knight. Holding the girl close, I let a tear fall from my eye, carrying the potion down a vine grown from my hair and directing it subtly toward her mouth. If even a drop touched her lips, it'd be enough. I adjusted the angle to keep Noelle from seeing too much, carefully maneuvering the vine so the potion dripped onto her lips. Her complexion visibly improved. Slowly, her eyes fluttered open. Are you a goddess? A miracle as expected of the witch Sama. At least Noelle was singing my praises, so it seemed I'd pulled it off without him noticing the vine. These tendrils are incredibly versatile. I can manipulate their shape, thickness, and direction freely. They're a real lifesaver. And just then, as I was administering the drops, an idea hit me. That's it. What if I made the potion come from the vines themselves instead? Chapter 11. I want to be able to produce potions from my vines. If I could do that, I think I'd be able to do a lot more. Up until now, I could only release potions from my root, which was inconvenient. But if I could do it through the more flexible vines, it would really open up my options. Since I've wished for it, the change should have already taken effect. Now I should be able to produce potions through my vines too. I made a potion as a test and tried storing it inside a fruit I grew from a vine. Yup, success. And it doesn't even look weird, right? It looked like a translucent husk cherry, specifically a plant called ghost-light grass. These tend to grow in places haunted by ghost-like monsters. Or maybe it's the other way around. The plant often grows around graves, so it just feels like ghosts gather there. The inside of the fruit has a lot of space, making it perfect for holding the potion. Just as I hoped, I had a potion-filled fruit ready to go. It looked like ghost-like grass, but instead of its usual purplish hue, it glowed a gentle yellow. Goddess Sama, what's that? She's not a goddess, she's witch Sama, though it does look like ghost-like grass, but it's so pretty. What are you going to do with it? The girl, now recovered enough to stand on her own, stared curiously at the fruit. It was something entirely new, and even Noel couldn't explain it. Might be faster to just try it on another patient. Maybe there's someone in this house. The door to the house next to where the girl had collapsed was unlocked, and it opened easily when I pushed it. The air inside was oddly warm. Before I could step in, the girl ran ahead of me. It must be her house. Following after her, I found a woman lying unconscious in the back room. Mom, I couldn't bring back any water, but I found someone amazing. Witch Sama, can you help my mom? The same way you helped me? If she's not dead, it should work. Let's try it. The woman, like the girl, was suffering from dehydration. I lifted her body and broke off one of the potion fruits, poked a small hole in its tip, and held it to her lips. Slowly, the potion trickled into her mouth. Her throat moved, she swallowed it. I leaned her against the bed and backed away. If my face were to accidentally touch her, it'd be a disaster. The girl sat beside her mother and watched anxiously. Huh? Why am I? Mom, Ellie. Oh, Ellie, did you come to heaven too? No, Mom, it's not that. Witch Sama saved us. The mother followed her daughter's pointing finger and looked at me. From a child's perspective, I might be a good person who saved her, but how would an adult see it? I held my breath and waited for her reaction. After staring blankly for a few seconds, the woman suddenly bowed her head. Thank you so much, Witch Sama. I don't even know how to begin repaying you. But about that reward, she trailed off into mumbles. But I didn't have time to sit and explain things slowly. She was still weak, and the other villagers must be in just as bad a state. I'll save the explanations for after the healing. I need to help as many people as I can. If people start saying a witch cursed the village, that'd be bad too. I turned away from the mother and daughter and stepped outside. Only Noel followed after me. You're going to help the other villagers too, right, Witch Sama? Oh, Noel, you really do understand me well. You're kind, Witch Sama. I figured from the start you'd do something like this. Please help everyone. Noel's eyes shimmered faintly with tears. Unsure how to respond, I just reached out and patted his head. He'd lost his family after all. Seeing a mother and child like that must have stirred something in him. Once everyone's healed, maybe someone will take Noel in. He missed having a family. If he found a new one, maybe that emptiness would ease. And if I could connect with whoever accepted him through Noel, it would help me blend into the village naturally. It sounded like a perfect plan. Witch Sama, I want to help too, Mom said I should. Just as I was thinking about how to go around the village, Ellie came dashing out of the house. She'd changed out of her dirty clothes and looked totally energetic. Witch Sama, I'll be more helpful. Huh? Are we at the wants to help age already? All right then, let's let them help. I created more potion fruits from my vine gloves and handed one to each of them. They saw how I used it earlier, so they should know what to do. I just give it like you did with my mom, right? What else would you do with it? All right, Witch Sama, leave it to us. Hey, wait, some houses are hard to find. Let me show you. The two of them ran off before I could stop them. I couldn't call out anyway, so I just stood there. They only had one fruit each, so they'd be back soon. I decided to stay in this area. I knocked on the next house. If they're dead inside, that'd be a problem. Gotta check. I sent a thread-like vine through a crack in the door and unlocked it from the inside. The hearth was still lit, and someone lay on the bed. So the lights I'd seen last night were probably from houses like this where no one could move. Ugh, who is it? Oh, conscious? So some still have that much strength. As I approached, the man in bed groaned and glared weakly at me. His voice had no strength. He was clearly still sick. Giving a potion to someone unconscious is easy, but if they're awake, forcing it on them would be suspicious. Should I just knock him out? I started to concoct a sleeping agent inside my body, soaking a hair-thin vine tip with it, planning to dab it near his nose discreetly, but then he glared at me so sharply it felt like a dagger. Ugh, scary, that stare could kill. Even in his condition, his eyes were terrifying. I gave up on drugging him and stepped outside to think of another way. Okay, maybe I ran away a little. There you are, Witch Sama. Sorry, Witch Sama. One of the houses was locked and we didn't know what to do, so we came back. Perfect timing, both of you. Please explain that I'm not suspicious. I smiled and took their hands, leading them into the house. Holding hands with kids should make me seem less shady, and these two could vouch for me. As I hoped, the man only looked slightly surprised when I brought the children in. He stopped glaring altogether. Uncle Don, if you drink this, you'll get better. Ellie, Witch Sama came to help us. Even though he still looked wary, he took the potion Ellie handed him. Maybe he was desperate, and the effect was instant. His eyes widened. What a miracle. We're gonna go help more people now. All right, you do that. Dan looked at me and gave a nod. It seemed he'd accepted me. Like that, with the kids by my side, I went around the village and managed to administer potions to the conscious villagers without issue. I picked the locks where needed, but luckily didn't find any bodies. I think I saved everyone. Witch Sama really is amazing. Everyone's better now. Of course she is. She's Witch Sama. With the two kids flanking me, I must have looked like a kind, beloved witch, not a suspicious child snatcher. Surely this was the correct first step to becoming known as a benevolent Witch Sama. Chapter 12. Thank you. Thanks to you, the village was saved. The one who bowed as he said this was Daon, the sharp-eyed, middle-aged man. He had summoned Noel and me behind his house to talk. Apparently, the interior hadn't been tidied yet, so we were meeting out back. It felt a bit like being called behind the gym for a serious talk. Everyone's still busy cleaning their homes, so as the village chief, I'm here to offer our gratitude on behalf of the villagers. So he was the village chief. I'd always pictured a village chief as an old man, so the fact that this strong-looking guy with his sharp eyes and still intact muscles was in charge surprised me so much, I let out an internal eh. My face stayed smiling, of course. But to think you had enough full recovery potions for the entire village. Just who are you? I'm just a kind man, Witch Sama. Despite his words of thanks, Down's stare turned piercing, and I screamed internally. Compared to the villagers' simple clothing, my outfit was covered in flowers and definitely stood out. No wonder I looked suspicious. But that's exactly why I brought Noel, to be my interpreter. I stepped behind him and gently placed my hands on his shoulders, not using him as a shield, just letting him do the talking. This is Flower Witch Sama. She's mastered plant-based magic, but in exchange, she lost her voice, so I'll speak on her behalf. I've heard of such mysterious techniques among the demon kind. So, the potions were created through plant magic? Yes, Witch Sama saved me too, when I collapsed. She's incredibly kind. Yes, good boy, Noel. Totally worth picking him up. If he'd stayed a dog, this would have been impossible. I was lucky. Dan still looked like he was mulling something over, but then let out a quiet sigh and relaxed his shoulders. You've saved us, and I'm grateful. But this village has little in the way of reserves. We can't offer much of a reward. I shook my head. A reward probably meant money, but I didn't know its value and didn't need it right now. What I needed first was a place to live. Then, what is it that you desire? Naturally, that would be a home. It was my first step toward living as a human. Also, I needed a family who'd accept Noel. That was key. I had a plan. Build relationships with humans through Noel. Blend into the village naturally without raising suspicion. I gently nudged Noel forward. When Dayon looked puzzled, I used a vine at my fingertip to conjure a tiny model of a house. Seeing this, Noel seemed to catch on and gave a firm nod. Witch Sama is looking for a home? The illness, no one knows its cause. It might come back. Witch Sama doesn't want to leave the village. Nice, Noel, you even came up with a perfect excuse. This gave us a flawless reason to stay. Doan couldn't possibly say no. With me around, any future illness could be cured and the villagers would feel safer. As long as Noel lived here and relayed my intentions, everything would go smoothly. I understand your request. However, I cannot permit a beastkin child to live within the village. Why not? There are some in the village who harbor ill feelings toward beastkin. I myself have had close ties with beastkin in the past, so I bear no such prejudice. But if conflict can be avoided, it should be. As village chief, I cannot allow it. What a twist. So beastkin discrimination exists here. Noel is probably the only one who can explain things for me as well as he does. Having him live close by would be ideal. Without him, my plan could fall apart. Should I give up on this village and look for one that accepts beastkin? What should I do? As I struggled with the thought, Noel looked up at me and forced a clearly fake smile. I'm used to it. Witch Sama, please don't make that sad face for my sake. Oh, right. It's not just hard on me, it's hard on Noel too. If someone rejected me for being a Mandragora, I'd feel devastated. Even if I'm a monster, I have no intention of hurting anyone. Still, I knew I wouldn't be accepted as I was. That's why I pretended to be a witch. But unlike me, Noel belongs to subspecies of humankind. If he's turned away just for being a beastkin, that has to hurt. I gently patted his head to comfort him. There's a watermill by the river outside the village. If the two of you were to settle there, well, it's outside village grounds, so I wouldn't have any say in the matter. Thank you, Witch Sama. He says we can live near the village. Huh. Wait a sec. Since when did we decide on Noel's living with me? I mean, I've been careful not to expose too much skin, but my entire body, except for the hair, is a Mandragora root that automatically absorbs life on contact. One little accident and I might suck the life out of Noel. Living together sounds dangerous. Noel, it's really better if we don't live together. Maybe he could live at the watermill and I could find a separate house. Witch Sama, now that I've been given the chance to serve you, I'll do my very best. Please take care of me from now on. Tail wagging with joy, Noel beamed up at me, Down folded his arms and smiled in that I did a good thing kind of way. Ah, this was that point of no return, wasn't it? I thought if I had a secluded house I could sleep buried underground, but now, my lament was absorbed by my sound-muffling lid on the outside. I was still smiling. Noel, thinking everything was fine, took my hand and started to lead me away. Witch Sama, let's go check out our new home. This way, I'll show you the way. The mood was just too nice. Even as a monster, I had to read the room. I had achieved my goal of living as a human. Maybe being in view of others would keep me more cautious. I was finally going to put down roots in this village, like a proper Mandragora. Chapter 12.5 Down had become the chief of Bit Village 5 years ago. He had once been a holy knight, slaying monsters in the name of the kingdom, but retired at the age of 35 and returned to his hometown. There, his parents, who wished to spend their remaining years in peace, handed the role of village chief over to him. The villagers, too, raised no objections. After all, Down, who had served the kingdom as a knight, was more than capable of protecting them. Bit Village was located near a mountain range, a place known as the Dragon's Rest. Over the last 500 years, the miasma in that region had gradually thinned, and now a demon domain was beginning to form. It's dangerous, and I've told them to leave the village, but no one wants to abandon their home. Honestly, everyone's so stubborn, it's troubling. No one could predict what sort of monsters would emerge from the demon domain. If it ended up being a cluster of sedentary plant-type monsters forming their own ecosystem, it might not be too bad. But if man-eating orc hordes or aggressive carnivores started descending the mountains, Bit Village would be in serious danger. Still, Down had returned for this very reason, to protect his home and its people when the time came. That was why the villagers had accepted him as their leader. Uncle Down, something's wrong. Ellie, are you all right? Ellie, the young girl who lived next door, had always been fond of Down that day, too. She had been at his home snacking on sweets and sipping tea. But then she suddenly turned pale and vomited. Children falling ill wasn't unheard of. But that day, it wasn't just Ellie. Other villagers began collapsing, too. Unable to eat, unable to drink, vomiting everything. Within 3 days, nearly the entire village was bedridden, unable to move. What is this illness? The speed it's spreading is unnatural. Could it be the work of a monster? Perhaps a venomous monster had infiltrated the area, poisoning the villagers in secret. But by the time Daon reached that conclusion, he too had succumbed to the same symptoms. He tried drinking water from the village jar only to vomit it up again. Yet without fluids, he would shrivel and die. He had prepared himself to fight monsters, trained his body daily so as not to lose his edge even with age, but never imagined it would end like this. Someone's opening the door. He heard footsteps entering from the front. Light clacking echoed on the floor, and suddenly the scent of flowers filled the air. Whoever it wasn't a villager. From his bed, Don gripped a dagger and kept a wary eye on the figure approaching. It was a woman, strikingly beautiful. Like a masterpiece sculpted by a famed artist, her beauty seemed almost unreal. She was adorned in flowers, and the fragrance clearly emanated from them. "Who the hell are you? How'd you get in here?" He wanted to say that, but his parched throat refused to cooperate. The front door had been locked. Yet she entered as though nothing were amiss. She didn't seem like an ordinary person. Her unnatural beauty only deepened his unease. He glared at her with all the killing intent of a former holy knight, but she didn't even flinch. Her smile only deepened. For her to remain so calm in the face of such bloodlust, who in the world was she? Damn it, I wouldn't stand a chance against her. He tried to strengthen his grip on the dagger, but his body had no strength left, though his skin was too dry to sweat. Inside, he was drenched in cold fear, but instead of attacking him, the woman simply turned her back and walked away. Just as he felt confused by her sudden departure, he heard the door open again. This time, she returned hand in hand with 2 children, one of whom he recognized, Ellie. The last time he saw her, she had been on the verge of death, vomiting and suffering, but now, here she was, completely healthy as if nothing had happened, and in her hands, she held a fruit resembling ghost-like grass. Apparently it was a medicine prepared by this woman, the witch. If Ellie had recovered so completely, it must have been effective. I'm going to die anyway, so I might as well. He took the fruit, bit into it, and swallowed the liquid inside. The taste, he remembered it. It was the same as that of a true elixir, the highest grade recovery potion. To give such a rare and valuable potion to complete strangers without hesitation, could such a person truly exist? And for that person to appear in a village ravaged by disease, what a miracle. We're going to help the others now, Uncle. All right, go on then. If she was going to save the villagers, then so be it. Even if she had ulterior motives, the villagers' lives came first. Dayon looked at the witch and gave a firm nod, silently asking her to do it. She smiled gently and left the house. And that day, thanks to the full recovery potions provided by the witch, every last villager was saved. It felt like a dream, too surreal to be real. Just who is this witch? What is she after? The last known survivor of the demon kind was a man, not a witch but a sorcerer. He served as the royal court magician in the capital. As a former holy knight, Dayon had seen him with his own eyes. This woman was clearly someone else. It's said all the demon kind perished save one. But could there be another survivor? One who's remained hidden for 500 years. This witch had saved more than 50 villagers using elixirs. Her benevolence was extraordinary, almost suspiciously so. Perhaps I should test her, just in case she has hidden intentions. It was only natural for a village chief to be cautious. Still, she responded to the villagers' gratitude with only a gentle smile. Letting the children take her hands and tug her along, playing happily, never looking irritated, just kind, just serene. If I had any artistic talent, I'd want to capture this scene. The woman who saved the village with miraculous medicine asked for nothing in return, and now smiled and played with the children she saved. The villagers watched her with warm, grateful eyes. The scene was more radiant than the midday sun. Children are often most attuned to ill intent. Ellie, for example, had once fled from would-be kidnappers with smiling faces and sought Daon's help. Despite his intimidating appearance, she trusted Daon deeply. That was why he believed in her instincts. Would a girl like that so openly adore someone harboring sinister motives? I don't want to suspect her, but if I end up being wrong, I hope I can at least make amends, do something of real worth for her. Chapter 13. We arrived at a watermill cottage by the stream. A large wheel turned slowly, powering a mill. Next to it stood a separate building, clearly intended as a residence. This was the place Dayon had offered us. So this is our home. My parents used to live here. I kept the place clean, so you should be able to move in right away. Though the villagers may still come by to use the mill. Peeking into the house, I saw it had been well maintained. Though no one had been living there recently, all the furniture remained. Daon's parents were nowhere to be seen in the village. They had probably passed away. Yet Dayon had continued caring for their home, cherishing it even after their deaths. Is it really okay for me to live here? This place must hold so many memories for him. What if I changed too much and upset him? As I turned to Daon, wondering if I'd be allowed to modify the house to suit our needs, Noelle caught my gaze and seemed to understand. Is this house important to you? Witch Sama seems to be wondering if it's really okay for her to use it. I've already made peace with my parents' passing. I was only cleaning it out of habit. A house lasts longer when people live in it. It would be better for it to be used. Please, Witch Sama, make it your own. That was good to hear. Then it should be fine to make adjustments to live more comfortably. Noelle, overjoyed, began excitedly exploring the house. I peeked through the entrance too, and found the furnishings and tableware all in place, ready for us to live in right away. By the way, Witch Sama, I hear you've lost your voice. Yup, that's the story we're going with. Most of the villagers can't read, but I'm literate. If you need anything, please write it. On the ground is fine for now. Certainly I can't speak. Noelle hadn't asked me to write either, so I'd just gone with it. But apparently most people here couldn't read. Probably why Noelle hasn't brought this up. I guess witches are expected to be literate. Not writing anything would seem suspicious. But the only language I know is Japanese. I wonder if it will be okay. Not writing would seem unnatural. If I at least scratched out some text, it might pass for foreign script. Maybe they'd think it was a language from another country. And considering they all speak Japanese, maybe the written form will somehow pass too. Hoping for the best, I used a branch I'd grown to write in the dirt. Gin fesionem one moi tukani o mayantali misent. There's nothing I particularly need at the moment. Witch Sama, I can't read this writing. Apparently, Japanese characters didn't carry over. Despite the spoken language being identical, the writing system was completely different. The letters were neat and deliberate. It shouldn't have looked like random scribbles, but Dawn stared at them with a hard-to-read expression. I braced for the worst. This is the ancient script, isn't it? I've seen similar symbols before. I can't read it myself, but could it be that Witch Sama has spent the last 500 years away from human civilization? Wait, 500 years? Where'd that number come from? Only one member of demonkind was said to survive from 500 years ago, the sorcerer. But now, with your appearance, it means a witch survived too, one who has remained hidden from the world all this time. From his phrasing, I realized something. Witches appear to be a subgroup within the demonkind. Since the terms sorcerer and witch are used separately, it's likely a gender distinction, male and female magic users, perhaps. So people think I'm a witch, a female of demonkind. Wait, does that mean demonkind live for hundreds of years? That's not human at all, and there's still one survivor. Apparently, the demonkind was almost entirely wiped out 5 centuries ago. Noel had somehow decided I was a witch despite that. How perceptive. I'm incredibly grateful he did. In fact, maybe the reason I'm able to pass myself off as one is because so little is known about them. With only one survivor confirmed, there likely aren't many people who could challenge my claim. That sorcerer currently resides in the royal capital. He serves the king as the court magician. Dayon glanced off into the distance, probably looking toward the capital. So that's where the last surviving demonkind lives. Just imagining meeting him made my face pale. You're curious about your fellow kin, aren't you? It's no surprise if you've spent centuries apart from others of your kind. No, I'm not worried because we're the same. It's because we're not. To a real demonkind, spotting a fake like me might be easy. After all, I don't actually know anything about witch behavior. I've just been coasting on people's assumptions. If the real one were to meet me, they might see right through the ruse. And if they discover I'm not a witch but a monster, then ugh, please, let's never meet ever. But this village is near the monster-infested mountains. It's probably out in the countryside. Meanwhile, the royal capital is likely in the center of the kingdom. If that sorcerer is stationed there, our paths shouldn't cross. The court magician rarely leaves the palace. You likely won't meet him.
Oh, really? That's great. But if fate wills it, I'm sure you will. After all, you're kin. One day, surely? No, thank you. Seriously, please spare me. I screamed internally, loud enough to echo through my whole body. Outwardly, I was still smiling. Down, seeing my expression, seemed to take it as a look of yearning, and smiled in satisfaction. To him, this was probably a heartwarming tale. 2 long-lost demonkind, each believing themselves to be the last, finally reunited after 500 years. In reality, it would be more like the last true demonkind shows up hoping to find a fellow survivor, only to discover a fake monster impersonating his kin, resulting in a potentially furious revelation. There's no happy ending in that.
Please, please, let us never ever meet. All I could do was pray with all my might. Chapter 14. Witch Sama. I found a bedroom in the back. I'll tidy it up right away so you can use it. I don't sleep in beds, so I'm fine. Noelle had apparently done a thorough check of the house and was full of enthusiasm, but I shook my head. If I lay down in a bed, my face would be at a low level, right where Noelle might accidentally brush against it. If I accidentally absorb him or something, that would be a disaster. Since I can't bury myself in soil, I'll just rest somewhere else. I passed by a puzzled Noelle and stepped inside. The front room appeared to be a spacious living area. I touched the wall, and from it I grew climbing plants that quickly spread across the walls and ceiling. To keep it from looking too drab, I made sure to bloom some flowers as well. Now it's starting to feel like a proper witch's house. I'll grow more plants later to enhance the atmosphere. I think I'll make my bed up on the ceiling. Oh, a hammock would be perfect. I continued weaving the vines growing up to the ceiling into an intricate pattern, forming a hammock that hung from above. At that height, there'd be no risk of accidental contact. I didn't make a ladder. I'll use my vines to ascend each time. That should be the perfect solution. Wow, sleeping in that looks really nice, Witch Sama. If you want a hammock too, Noelle, I can make you one. I headed into the next room, the bedroom. It had nothing but a simple bed by the window. Since there wasn't anything else, I figured I'd let Noelle use the space however he liked. Just in case, I also made a small hammock for him next to the bed. His eyes sparkled as he looked at it, so I gave him a nod to let him know he was free to use it. Looks like the bed might end up unused after all. Witch Sama, you really are amazing. The atmosphere of the house has already changed so much. You can make anything with plants. If you can prepare everything you need yourself, I guess you never had any trouble living away from people all this time. Let's go with that narrative. In reality, I came because I was struggling fighting off monsters and absorbing them day after day. It had been a brutally harsh existence. Humans didn't attack me on sight. They even mistook me for a kind witch and weren't afraid of me at all. This is exactly the kind of safe place I'd been wishing for. I'd really like to settle down here, continuing to pretend to be human. But why would you come to a place like this after being away from the world for 500 years? Yikes. True, it would be strange for a witch who'd vanished for 500 years to suddenly reappear. If someone asked why I came now, well, I just ran away from monsters. Not that I could explain that since I can't speak. That mountain, it turned into a haven for gross zombie-type monsters, and they tasted terrible. Honestly, that was a big reason too. At some point, most of the monsters there started resembling half-rotted zombies, and absorbing them provided hardly any flavor or nutrition. It was like eating dregs. Just thinking about it, my eyes wandered toward the mountain with a far-off look. Noelle and Dayan followed my gaze, looking toward the same mountain. Come to think of it, Witch Sama, did you come down from the mountain? Wait, that mountain? Don't tell me you used to live in the demon realm? Ah, crap. I slipped up. Wait, are they going to figure out I'm a monster? As I screamed internally, outwardly, I still wore my usual smile. That smile, unfortunately, was interpreted as confirmation, and I found Dayan staring at me like he'd just seen something completely insane, wide-eyed and visibly shaken. Even for a witch with immense magical power, that's reckless beyond belief. Did you really spend 5 centuries watching over the resting place of your fallen kin? Huh? I think this is heading in a weird direction. They say at the time of the Dragon War, only about 500 of the demon kind remained. Don't tell me you've been offering prayers for every last one of them? I learned from that statement that the demon kind had fought dragons and perished on that mountain. Maybe that's why I had such a plump, round root body back then. The land was saturated with magical energy. The soil there was delicious. Since they clearly misunderstood, I nodded. Better this than being mistaken for a monster. Witch Sama is so kind. You've been praying for your fallen brethren all this time, haven't you? But I heard that in such thick miasma, no living thing can survive. That's why we couldn't build our village any higher. Exactly. Even the demon kind would suffer in that environment. The effects of dense magical energy on the body are immeasurable. I doubt you lived in the very heart of the demon realm, but just surviving near it is an incredible feat. But isn't it dangerous now with so many monsters spawning as the miasma thins? Oh, that reminds me. Witch Sama took down a terrifying beast before coming here. She's not just kind, she's also incredibly strong. I see. You must be a truly exceptional witch to have survived the Dragon War and still be able to live in such a toxic place, because I can't speak. Noelle and Dawn are building up an elaborate backstory on their own. They're doing all the mental gymnastics to explain how and why a witch could live in such a place, and why I would emerge now. So that's how they're rationalizing it. Well, that works. Please, keep expanding my lore. Really, if you think about it, the idea that the person before them is actually a Mandragora monster mimicking a human is far more absurd than believing in a long-lived, secluded witch. Unless you knew about my evolution and how I used points to take on human form, you'd never guess. It's a totally unique situation. And so, thanks to their combined imagination, I was now the ancient flower witch, a kind soul who spent 500 years mourning 500 fallen demonkind, and who finally, upon realizing the mountains had become overrun with monsters, deemed it too dangerous and descended into the human world to return to society. If she really existed, that would be a truly epic character. Witch Sama. The garden is overgrown with weeds right now, but there used to be a field next to the house. Since you seem to like flowers, maybe you could plant something there. And please, feel free to adjust the house and surroundings to your liking. Ah, good point. I should think about Noel's food, too. Let's grow plenty of edible plants. Then please, take your time and rest. We're thinking of holding a celebration soon, to show our gratitude to you. We hope you'll attend. With that, Dowan returned to the village. Noelle and I remained. First, we cleared away the weeds around the house and then grew a variety of edible plants nearby to serve as dinner. But, I'm sorry, Witch Sama's potion cured me, so why? You should rest for a bit. You must be tired today. After harvesting the fruits and vegetables and washing them in the river, Noelle ate some, but just like the villagers had before, he vomited them all up. After giving him another full recovery potion, his complexion returned and he regained his energy. Still, I had him rest in his room to be safe. What is causing this illness? It's possible the other villagers are also falling sick again. Even if making recovery potions is easy for me, it still uses up magical power and makes me hungry. Since Noelle wasn't watching, I figured it was fine to eat something questionable like a poisonous fish and stepped into the river. Ugh, this water tastes awful. It's got that zombie monster bitterness, water soaked through the gaps in my clothes, and I grimaced at the nasty flavor. And then it hit me. Wait, could this be the cause of the illness? Chapter 15. The fact that the river water has that zombie-like taste probably means the rotten bodily fluids of those monsters are flowing in from upstream. It might be fine for me, but for a human, it's no surprise they'd get sick. While eating, extending vines from my clothes to catch fish underwater, pulling them back, and brushing them against my legs under my skirt, I mulled things over. Noelle had said there were more poisonous fish lately, and that seemed to be true. Poisonous fish aren't particularly tasty, so I can tell right away. But it feels like over half the fish now carry poison. The contaminated water must be affecting them too. What's worse, these aren't ordinary fish. They're a kind of monster that's evolved to survive in this toxic water. Well, even if they're poisonous, they're still monsters, so they're more nourishing than normal fish and perfectly fine for my meals. But this really isn't good. Noelle probably got sick because he washed food in this river. I wonder if the villagers did too. If that's the case, then unless I deal with the root cause, this illness isn't going away. I turned my gaze upstream. The number of zombie monsters on the mountain had increased significantly, and wiping them all out would be difficult. My voice attacks don't work on them, so I'd have to take them down one by one, and that's just not realistic. But if this keeps up, no ordinary animals, including humans, will be able to survive near this mountain. According to Dawan, that mountain's in the middle of forming its own ecosystem, and it's still unclear what direction that'll take. From the conversation between the two creating Witch Sama's lore, I'd learned that the mountain, overflowing with dense magical energy due to a dragon's death, had turned into a place where the miasma harms living things. Over 500 years, the energy gradually faded, but now it's become fertile ground for monstrous life, where monsters consume one another and rapidly evolve. A dangerous land. Humans apparently call such places demon realms. Thank goodness I escaped before it turned into a swarm of powerful monsters. That mountain's ecosystem became zombie-infested thanks to this new evolution. It used to be all goblins and such at first, but partway through, even the goblins turned into zombies. I recalled life back then with a tinge of nostalgia. I hate goblins. They'd yank me out of the ground and give me a fright. Once I took humanoid form, they stopped pulling me out, but when I lay buried with just my head poking out, a zombie goblin once chomped down on my stem. Of course, I screamed in surprise, but my scream has no effect on zombies, and zombies aren't tasty, so I had no desire to eat it. I strangled it with my hair vines and sprayed it with dissolving fluid, but more kept coming, so eventually it was faster just to tear them apart with vines or slice them up with sharp-leaved plants. Ugh, now I've remembered something awful. I never want to live like that again. Still, in a mountain overrun by zombies, it's no wonder the water's contaminated. I'll need to purify it. Of course, there are plants capable of purifying polluted water like this. Sitting by the riverbank, I grew a variety of plants around me using diversification and ordered them to extend upstream, but growth has its limits. While they'll spread faster if I pour in my magic power, overdoing it makes me hungry. Since this area is downstream from the village, I grew the plants past the village and called it a day. Feels like the nourishment I got from the fish has been used up. It's probably impossible to fix this all at once. I'll extend it gradually over time. The zombies disappeared partway down the mountain, so right, maybe as far as the spot where that human collapsed. The first human I helped after taking on human form, I wonder how that knight is doing now. I'd stayed off the river path to avoid running into him again, so I don't know if he passed me or not. Maybe he made it home safely, or maybe he didn't. He wasn't from this village, so I probably won't see him again and have no way to find out. But if humans go that far, then I should purify the river up to that point too. It'd help animals that can't tolerate poison after all. Next, I want to check how the village uses its water, and tomorrow I'll need to deliver more recovery medicine to the sick. The village had a well too. Since it takes years for groundwater to surface, the well water might be safe, but just in case, I'll grow these plants there too. By the waterside, I grew a plant with many tiny white blossoms. Where did I find it? On the back of a zombie monster. Like a parasitic fungus, it spread across zombies. Once the body was completely covered in flowers, the zombie would crumble and return to the soil, while the plant rooted itself in place. Such is its life cycle. I can display the status of any plant I absorb, so I've learned a lot about it. I absorbed this flower thinking it might be an effective weapon against zombies, and it only parasitizes zombies, so it's harmless to humans. Zombies do meet a pretty gruesome end, but it poses no threat to people. This world really has some terrifying plants, but from a human perspective, it's a good one. It absorbs rot, waste, and poison, converting them into nutrient-rich fertilizer. Its name is Purification Blossoms, a bit of an obvious name, but it's considered incredibly valuable. However, it only grows in places rich in magic, so it's rarely found in human-populated areas. Even if brought back and planted, it won't thrive due to magic deficiency. My plan is to grow it at the well, then in toilets or manure pits for fertilizer production. If I get the plants growing to a decent size, the villagers can use the fertilizer to keep them alive efficiently. Since I can grow plants freely, they can use as many as they need. With this, I can save the villagers. Having figured out the source of the illness and how to solve it, I cheerfully returned home. Surely, if I'm this helpful as a witch, the villagers will keep accepting me from now on. Using vines, I climbed into the hammock hanging from the ceiling and lay down. The sensation of being suspended is strange. I'm a creature meant to be in the soil, not dangling in the air. Suddenly, I remembered those root vegetables hanging from strings in my old world. I wonder if this is how dried daikon radishes feel. Chapter 16. The next morning, Noel was already full of energy. Eager to make up for the trouble he'd caused, he harvested ripe fruit and went to wash it in the river, only to notice the presence of purification blossoms. Witch Sama, this flower, I've never seen it before. Since it's a rare flower. How should I explain it? I know. I took Noel's hand and led him to the back of the house where the toilet was. Though it wasn't like a modern toilet, it was more like a shack with a bucket to collect waste. An even simpler setup than a portable toilet. I wasn't sure if it was this world or just this village, but from what I'd seen yesterday, there didn't seem to be any flush toilets. Apparently, the waste was transported to a manure pit to be used as fertilizer. Noel looked puzzled, understandably, since I'd suddenly brought him to the toilet. Witch Sama, I'm already feeling fine. No more nausea, but, I dropped a single purification blossoms into the toilet. In an instant, flowers began blooming from the bucket, absorbing its contents as they spread. Excess petals fluttered down to the floor, scattering like confetti. According to the status readout, these fallen petals made incredibly effective fertilizer, better than compost when spread over soil. Whoa, the smell is gone. Does this flower clean up filth? Yep, that's exactly what it does. So, if you planted it by the river, then the river's contaminated, and that's what's making people sick. As expected of Noel, he caught on quickly. When I nodded and patted his head, his dark brown tail wagged vigorously. This child really is smart. He may not speak much, but Noel understands nearly everything I try to convey. Sure, there are times when the message doesn't get through, but for someone who can't talk, I think we communicate pretty well. I'm glad he's here with me, though living together still makes me a little nervous. Still, it's kind of weird, isn't it? This doesn't feel like a toilet at all. It's almost too beautiful to use. The flowers blooming from the waste bucket completely surrounded it in a perfect ring. Not quite a crane in a garbage heap, but maybe a flower in a latrine. Well, it doesn't matter to me. I won't be using this toilet anyway. My body doesn't excrete after all. What looks like a human body is actually roots. While I do have absorption functions, I lack the processes for digestion and excretion. I've also learned that I can absorb nutrients from human food simply by touching it with my bare hands. I once secretly ate a small apple-like fruit and placed it back on Noel's plate. He tilted his head and said, "This doesn't have much flavor." Apparently, food loses its taste after I absorb it naturally. I took it back from his hand and disposed of it in the garden soil. I can eat human food, but it's far less efficient than directly consuming animals or monsters. I should probably stick to hunting for my meals. Witch Sama, are you here? That's the village chief's voice. If the river waters the cause, maybe someone else has fallen ill. I'll go explain. What an unbelievably dependable child. Noel dashed out of the toilet and ran toward the house where Daon's voice had come from. I followed more leisurely, weaving a basket from vines and filling it with fruits containing full recovery medicine. When I arrived at the house entrance, Daon, looking pale, was receiving an explanation from Noel. I see. So the illness will keep recurring as long as the water remains polluted. Yes, but Witch Sama can command flowers that purify water. She already planted them by the river this morning, so I think the water's safe now. I can't thank Witch-sama enough. Ah, there you are. I heard from this child. But already several more villagers have fallen ill, and I was hoping to consult, though it seems I don't need to. Noticing me as I approached, Dayon began speaking with a troubled expression, but when I held out the basket I carried, he noticed its contents and bowed deeply, tears welling faintly in his eyes. I truly can't thank you enough. If there's anything I can do for you, anything at all. No, you don't have to go that far. Witch-sama doesn't ask for anything in return, Daon-san. I shook my head and Noel chimed in, maybe a bit dramatically to fill in the rest. Dayon bit his lip lightly, looking a little guilty. Perhaps he felt bad about being treated so kindly. I feel a little guilty myself since part of me is doing this to avoid being disliked. It's true, I want to help the villagers, but I can't say it's entirely out of goodwill. After all, I'm a Mandragora trying to become a witch kind to humans so I can live among them. Witch-sama, we're going with you, right? Yep, I want to grow more purification blossoms in the well as a precaution. And in the manure pit too. It'll help raise sanitation standards. When I nodded, Noel beamed and ran ahead. He seemed proud, like a child with an important task. Watching him, Daon narrowed his eyes, almost dazzled by the sight. He must feel very proud. Why, in this age, for a beastkin to serve a witch like you, it's a rare stroke of fortune. I'll be off then. Dayon took the basket of recovery medicine and began walking toward the village, though he staggered slightly. Now that I thought about it, he had looked pale for a while. Maybe he was sick himself. That would explain the tears in his eyes earlier. I tapped his shoulder to stop him and created a new medicine fruit. Perhaps he hadn't realized his own condition. Some people with sturdy bodies don't notice when they're unwell because they're still able to function. Dayon seemed like that type. Witch-sama is something wrong. Here, drink this. Don't worry, you'll see. I nicked the tip of the fruit to let the medicine drip out and handed it to him with a gentle smile. He looked puzzled at first, then downed the liquid in one gulp. That should restore his condition. Realizing he'd been sick, he stared down at the now empty fruit. Thank you, Witch-sama. I promise I will repay this kindness someday. With a serious expression, he bowed and ran off toward the village. I followed after them, walking slowly. I'm not a real witch, and that truth made me feel a tiny bit guilty. But even if I'm not the real thing, I at least want to be a good neighbor to humans. I want to try my best to become that kind of presence. First things first, let's clean up the village. Chapter 16.5 Dow and the Flower Witch began living in the watermill near the village. As she'd warned, without identifying the root cause, the illness might return. Villagers once again began reporting nausea the following morning. Dowan immediately headed to the watermill to seek her help. But when it came into view, the area had changed dramatically from the day before. Flowers bloomed everywhere, fruits and vegetables were growing, and the whole scene was vivid and full of life. Even the building itself was starting to be overtaken by plants. In just a single day, it had completely become the witch's home. Witch-sama, are you there? He knocked on the door but received no reply. Even when he opened it, she was nowhere to be seen, apparently out at the moment. The disease progressed quickly, but it wasn't fatal within a single day. He decided to wait for her return. Still, if the medicine only treated symptoms and villagers got sick again the next day, they'd need her help daily. Would this become the new normal? If that happens, the village will end up completely dependent on the witch. Could that have been her plan all along? If asking for the witch's medicine was the only way to survive, then of course the village would treat her with care. She always smiled gently and claimed she couldn't speak. But wasn't that just how people interpreted her silence? If the cause wasn't found, they'd be trapped in a cycle. It was even possible that the disease itself had been caused by her. Daon-san. Ah, it's you. Where's Witch-sama? I need to speak with. She's behind the house right now, and she already found the cause of the illness. What? According to the beastkin boy traveling with the witch, Noel, the illness stemmed from toxins flowing in from upstream. The witch had realized this and had planted a flower that purified the water. Soon, Witch-sama appeared too. She walked slowly, wrapped in a gentle floral scent, wearing her usual serene smile. In one hand, she held a basket woven from grass. Just that, yet the image was strikingly beautiful. I truly don't know what we'd do without Witch-sama. Ah, Witch-sama, I heard the details from this child. But several people have already fallen ill again, so I came to consult, though I suppose I don't even need to say it anymore. He had intended to ask if she could make more medicine for the villagers. But before he could, Witch Sama quietly held out the basket she carried inside, just like yesterday, were fruits filled with full recovery medicine. Even now, she looked like something crafted, far too beautiful to be real, and no doubt her heart was just as pure and kind. She'd already predicted the illness would persist and prepared medicine in advance, and even addressed the root cause by purifying the river. I can't believe I ever doubted her. I'm truly sorry, Witch Sama. Maybe it was her inhuman beauty, or the impression she gave when they first met. But even while wanting to believe in her, a part of him had remained suspicious. Why had she lived for 500 years in a mountain choked with miasma? He'd come up with possible reasons, but alone at home, he couldn't help but wonder, could someone that's selfless truly exist in this world? But now with Witch Sama, I feel like such a person really might exist. He'd tried to subtly suggest offers or requests multiple times, but the only thing she ever asked for was to be allowed to live in the village. Even that had been part of her efforts to help. She was completely free of greed. Just as he was about to bring the medicine to the villagers, a wave of dizziness hit him and his body swayed. He'd felt a faint nausea, too. Apparently, the illness had returned to him as well. When you're feeling unwell, it's easy for your thoughts to take a darker turn. Still, that's no excuse. It had been Don's own distrustful nature that kept him from fully believing in her. As he stumbled, Witch Sama touched his shoulder, and he turned around. She held out another fruit, not from the basket, but a separate one filled with recovery medicine. She noticed I was sick too, but the villagers should come first. As the village chief, his duty was to prioritize the others. As long as he could still move, he should be last. But then, Witch Sama gently scored the tip of the fruit, letting the medicine drip. If he didn't drink it now, it would go to waste. That made it clear this one was for him. Witch Sama had likely seen right through him, his sense of responsibility, his hesitation. And yet without words, she seemed to say, "Don't overdo it. Take care of yourself too." Honestly, what a kind witch she is. He would never doubt the goodness in her heart again. No matter who else might cast suspicion on her, Down would be the one to stand up and deny it. He downed the medicine in one gulp, thanked Witch Sama, and rushed back to the village. He'd distribute the doses she'd given him to the sick. If it wasn't enough, he'd come back to ask her for more. "Ah, Down-san, I've been waiting." I ran off ahead, but I didn't take any medicine with me. Noel stood there, ears and tail drooping apologetically. Truly, he was a good kid. Raised by someone like Witch Sama, there was no chance he'd grow up twisted. He'd stay kind and good-hearted. "All right, help me out then. First, let's go to the houses with patients." He gave instructions to Noel, who helped deliver the medicine. Later, when they returned to Witch Sama for more, she was by the village well. As they watched, greenery quickly spread from where she touched the well. When Don saw the small white blossoms, he realized what it was. Purification blossoms. So that's what purified the river. And the well too, just in case it was contaminated. Truly, just how far ahead does she think? It was an exceedingly rare plant that typically doesn't grow in human settlements. Even if brought back, it decomposes waste and creates fertilizer, but never grows beyond that. The reason, it requires an immense amount of magic to thrive. Only demons and similar beings have that kind of power. Yet here she was, growing it instantly at the well, and next, in the manure pit. Even for a demon, blooming this many flowers would use a tremendous amount of magic and cause serious fatigue. But Witch Sama just smiled gently, showing no sign of strain. Is she trying not to worry the villagers? Maybe her mastery of plant magic lets her manage it efficiently, but still, the amount must be exhausting. And yet, she went on to bloom purification blossoms in multiple spots throughout the village. Villagers using the well while still carrying traces of illness could contaminate it. Vomit had also been dumped in the manure pit, another potential source of disease. Witch Sama intended to completely eliminate the sickness from this village, beautiful in both form and spirit. Truly the flower witch. Seeing her, Daon felt an urge to offer a prayer of thanks to the gods for the great fortune of having such a witch come to their village. Chapter 17. After planting purification blossoms around the village well and manure pit, I began to feel hungry. I'd made a large number of full recovery fruits, and it seemed my magic consumption had outpaced my regeneration. There were a few purification blossoms petals scattered around the well, likely because the well had indeed been contaminated. I picked one up and subtly opened a gap in my glove to touch it. As expected of a petal praised as fertilizer, it was tasty for me as well. Since the flower had already bloomed, I didn't need to use any more of my magic on it, and if the villagers didn't use the flowers for farming, I could eat the leftovers. Isn't this what you'd call symbiosis? Witch Sama. These petals are pretty, but what do we do with them? They become fertilizer. This flower turns things that are poisonous to people into nutrients that help plants grow. While I was still trying to figure out how to explain it to Noel, Down arrived and answered in my stead. It seemed he knew about purification blossoms. That being the case, I didn't need to explain further. He'd probably know how best to use it. Today, Down had a sword at his waist, different from usual. It suited him well, giving him an air that didn't resemble a rural village chief at all. Why is Down-san wearing a sword? Don't tell me he's found out I'm a monster and plans to cut me down. Down-san, why are you dressed like you're going into battle? Witch Sama's curious too. Ah, we've had more wild animals around lately, probably ones that lost out in the survival battles up in the mountains. I'm heading out to reinforce the fence around the village, but there's a chance I could be attacked. Apparently, creatures that couldn't adapt to the shifting magical ecosystem of the demon realm had fled down here, like bears descending from the mountains when food runs out. But for me, that might actually be a good thing. I smiled at Dawan and pointed at myself. Let me handle that job, that's what I meant. Witch Sama wants to do it? Right, Dawan-san, you just recovered from being sick. I took the recovery medicine Witch Sama gave me, so my strength is fully back. You're too kind, Witch Sama. No need to worry about me. No, that's not it. I just want to eat something. Do you have a plan, Witch Sama? Not exactly, but I'd like to be alone if possible. When I nodded, Noel also nodded back as if he understood. Don-san, let Witch Sama handle this. I think there are some kinds of magic she can't use when people are around. Last time she fought a beast, she told me not to follow her. She must have a powerful spell that could accidentally involve others. Well, I mean, my voice is a hazard to humans, so he's not wrong. Noel's trust in me was almost painful. I'm just a cowardly Mandragora, but to him I'm apparently some grand, powerful flower witch. Don sighed in what seemed like resignation, but his expression looked more like one of satisfaction or perhaps acceptance. Very much like Witch Sama, understood. Then I'll warn the villagers to stay away from the area. Noel, help me out. Yes. As I watched them walk away, I thought, there are definitely some misunderstandings happening here, but they're convenient ones. With that, I headed out of the village. The village is surrounded by a wooden fence, which apparently serves as protection against beasts. Though it has outward-facing wooden spikes, its defensive power is still limited. I figured it was time I stepped up, especially if it meant getting food. But first, let's eat. If I head into the thicker parts of the woods, something's bound to attack me. Even when you know you'll be attacked, it still startles you when it actually happens. Mandragoras are prone to being easily frightened. We scream over the smallest things. I really don't want to be startled. It's exhausting. It feels like walking into a haunted house you're bad with. Tense, I crept into the forest, and as expected, some sort of beast leapt at me. I let out a full-blown internal scream, caught it with my hair vines, and grappled with it. Ah! This thing's resisting so much. Just calm down already. Once you bind the joints, animals can't move, but this monster was like a furry snake squirming and wriggling to escape my vines. I had no choice but to exude some sedative and paralyzing medicine through the vines to pacify it. Since I didn't know which would work, I released both, but the creature secreted its own fluids, trying to slip away, and may have been neutralizing the medicine. It showed no signs of calming down. At times like this, I've got to stab it like a shot. I grew a plant with sharp thorns from my vines. The more the snake squirmed, the more the thorns pierced it. When I infused the thorns with medicine, it finally began to settle down. Once it stopped moving, I unwrapped my hair and lowered the creature to the ground. Its slick texture reminded me more of an eel than a snake. Might be good grilled in a sweet soy glaze. Not that I'd cook it, raw's more efficient for me. That was terrifying. No human could handle something like this. And that fence wouldn't stop it either. We have to do something. I touched the snake. It was packed with nutrients and tasted great. I've noticed, the stronger the monster, the more satisfying it is. I don't have a stomach, so it's not full in the human sense, but I do feel a clear sensation of being nourished. This should restore the magic I spent earlier. If things like this are showing up, we'll need stronger thorns on the fence. I'll grow some of those spiky plants. But I should make sure the villagers don't touch them. I reinforced the wooden fence with a plant called chain rose. Its thorns are sharp enough to wound even a monster's hide, and it grows beautiful roses, so visually it's not too bad. I made sure the thorns only grew outward, not facing the village. The original fence had spikes pointing outward like a shield, so I simply added to it. The village is now surrounded by thorny vines. It might look a bit like the plants are taking over, but it's pretty, so I think it'll be fine. I'll instruct the vines to catch monsters that come near, but not being notified when something gets caught is a bit inconvenient. The plants I create with diversification follow my orders even when I'm not nearby, so they'll automatically catch monsters, but they don't have a way to alert me. It'd be great if I could watch them from a distance, but when a part of my body is separated, I can't control it anymore unless, suddenly I heard the familiar ping of skill acquisition. The message read, "Skill acquired, clone." Whoops, another skill. That leaves me with only 10 evolution points. But clone, huh? Does that mean I can make more of myself? Chapter 18. I decided to test what the clone skill could actually do. Just as I'd suspected, it didn't let me make a second version of myself or anything like that. My body, as a magical creature, was too complex to fully duplicate. So this clone skill isn't about copying me, it's more like splitting my consciousness. What it actually allowed was for me to divide my awareness and send it into parts I had separated from myself, or into plants I'd created through diversification. The degree of awareness I transferred could be adjusted too, ranging from full sensory perception to a faint connection that just alerted me with a subtle sensation if something was touched. If the plant had mobility, I could even move it around freely. This skill, I realized, had a lot of potential. With some experimentation, it might be like gaining extra limbs. What I really want to try is if I grow another Mandragora that can move, could it act like my eyes? Of course, I wasn't planning to grow a Mandragora that could kill humans here and now, but if I could grow a version of myself as a clone, I might be able to use it like a remote camera. This would take time to test out, carefully without bothering anyone. For now, the village fence reinforcement was done. I left a thin thread of my awareness in the vines so I'd be notified if they caught anything. Now I'd know the moment a monster showed up. Any plant I grow can act as an extension of me now. Super useful skill. For now, beast defenses seem covered. Let's head back to the village. As I returned toward the village, I spotted Dawn, Noelle, and Ellie standing together in what looked like the central plaza. Noelle noticed me first and ran over, with Ellie chasing close behind. Witch-sama, welcome back. Witch-sama, the whole village is covered in flowers now. It's so pretty. The two of them stood side by side looking up at me. I patted both their heads. They're about the same size as goblins, but unlike goblins, human children are harmless and adorable. I still can't stand goblins. Witch-sama, the flowers growing on the fence, they're beautiful, but they've got thorns, right? There aren't any facing inward, but outside there's a ton, exactly, so don't touch them, they'll hurt you. Got it, we'll stay away from them. So they're to protect the village from beasts, right? When I held up my fingers in an X shape to signal don't touch, Noelle nodded and responded. He's so quick to understand. It really helps. Ellie watched this exchange with curiosity, tilting her head. Noelle, how come you always understand what Witch-sama is trying to say? If you watch her closely, it's easy. Witch-sama is really kind, smart, and always acting for someone else's sake, so it's just a matter of reading her intentions. It's not hard. That might be a pretty big misunderstanding. I'm not sure what kind of flower witch image exists in Noelle's mind, but it's clearly a lot more grand than the reality. There's quite a gap between how I see myself and how he sees me. Still, it's convenient that he thinks so well of me. Though sometimes it feels like I'm deceiving him and I can't help but feel a little guilty. I'm sorry, I'm just a Mandragora inside. I'll try my best to be a good Mandragora, one that helps humans, not just as potion ingredients either. I'd really rather not end up pickled or boiled. Witch-sama, you're going to live at the watermill, right? Can I come visit you there? A visitor, huh? That could help reinforce the kind witch image, right? Sure, I'd love for you to come. I nodded as I thought that. Making my home a fun place for kids to visit might be a good idea. Maybe I'll grow a swing from vines, surround it with pretty flowers, and Ellie will probably come by all the time. And I'll need some fruits and veggies they can snack on. Meat would be ideal, though. Noelle's growing, so I want him to eat plenty of protein, but I can only grow plants. I can't create meat. Well, not exactly true. There are plant-based monsters that grow meat. If it's a plant-type monster, I can absorb it and reproduce it through my diversification skill. One such monster is the barometz, a plant that grows massive fruit, each containing a sheep inside like a fairy tale. Split the fruit open and out pops livestock, like something from a storybook. Though I've seen it produce more than just sheep. I've seen deer, even goblins. The description says, contains sheep, but the status explanation is written from a human perspective. In truth, the barometz seems to absorb whatever herbivore first tried to harvest it, then reconstructs that creature inside its fruit. Then it uses the resulting meat to lure in carnivorous monsters, gets eaten, and spreads its seeds through the predator's body to new locations. That's its survival strategy. Yeah, definitely not something I can feed to humans. Why are plant monsters always so scary? Unlike me, they're just awful. When you visit a witch's house, you should bring a gift? Okay, Mama said to bring eggs. Well, that's fine then. Noelle looked slightly displeased about Ellie visiting. I wondered why. Then remembered he's a beastkin. He's probably afraid of being disliked or discriminated against. Ellie, being a child, didn't seem to care about the difference in species, but Noelle's probably scared of being hated. I wish he didn't have to be so afraid. I patted both of their heads again. It'd be nice if you two stayed close. If Ellie grows up with Noelle, maybe she'll become someone who doesn't discriminate against beastkin. When I patted them, both smiled a little shyly. Then Ellie's stomach let out a small grumble, and she quickly held her belly in embarrassment. I guess she was hungry. Hey, I'm hungry. Which Sama, your white flower petals make fruits and veggies grow really well, right? Don Ojison told me. There's a fruit I've always wanted to try. Do you think it could grow? If you don't have the seeds, then I can't grow it. Oh, then I guess not. Seeing Ellie look so downcast, I tilted my head, asking what kind of fruit she meant. It was from a fairy tale, a fruit that grows in areas rich in magic, like the demon realm. A low bush that produces sparkling, colorful fruits, sweet like candy, and shaped like little sugar drops. It's called the fairy candy tree. I absorbed that one before. I can make it. I smiled at Ellie and beckoned her toward her house. I grew a fairy candy tree beside it. When she saw it, she jumped for joy. Wah, it's really the fairy candy. Thank you, Witch Sama. That event marked the beginning of villagers coming to me with requests for various plants. In return, they began sending me food and useful tools to the watermill. It seems I've been completely accepted by the village, and that makes me really happy. Unaware that rumors would soon spread of a village under the rule of a witch who commands plants. Chapter 19. In one corner of the royal castle, within the laboratory granted to the court magician, Ritter delivered an important report while feeling a twinge of unease as he watched Nikolaus tugging on the leaves of a potted mandragora. Please don't pull it out, he silently prayed. There are rumors spreading now of a village ruled by a witch. We've even received a request from the local lord to investigate. The other man never once took his eyes off the mandragora, not even glancing at Ritter. Unsure if he was even being listened to, Ritter finished his report, feeling it might have been a waste of breath. But apparently the man had been listening, he replied. Oh, that's so. You're not interested? Nikolaus was the last surviving demon and the only remaining magic user. With unmatched magical power far beyond any other race, he had lived a long life, mastering countless spells. It was said that even among demons, no one else had wielded as many kinds of magic as he had. Ritter had assumed that even he would show interest if a fellow demon, long thought extinct for the past 500 years, had truly survived. But his attention remained fixed on the potted mandragora, probably a fake, right? People claiming to be witches or magic users show up from time to time. They've all been frauds. No point in getting curious. I see, and now you're telling me you're taking time off to go investigate that fake? Sigh. Well, I guess I can't stop you. That's your real job anyway. Congrats on your pointless labor.
Good luck.
Ritter had grown somewhat used to this irritating way of speaking, but that didn't mean it didn't bother him. Still, Nikolaus was a magical genius who'd lived over 5 centuries and was favored by generations of kings. Complaining was simply not an option. Oh, right. Was it Bit Village? That's near the new demon realm, right? If you spot that running mandragora you said you saw before, catch it for me, okay? Thanks. Understood. And so, the magic genius who defied common logic casually plucked petals from the mandragora, making the potted plant tremble violently. Ritter decided to escape the room before things got any worse. So yeah, the mage isn't interested in the witch. The ones assigned to investigate Bit Village were Ritter, Leonhardt, and a hand-picked few of their subordinates. Since it was near the demon realm where Leonhardt had nearly died, they'd assembled only elite members for this small unit. Only 10 people could be transported at once via Nikolaus's teleportation magic circle, so the investigation team was capped at 10. If the witch was deemed a threat, capture or even execution was within the realm of possibility. It made sense for 2 squad leaders to go. I see. Still, I hope the witch turns out to be real. That way, the mage wouldn't be alone anymore. Might ease his loneliness. Do you really think that mage feels lonely? We don't fully understand the minds of long-lived demons. But in the end, they're still people. I just can't picture that guy ever feeling lonely. Honestly, I'm the one who's lonely. Why don't women like me? Ritter let out a heartfelt sigh, and Leonhardt gave him a sympathetic smile. Ritter knew exactly why. He wasn't as handsome or as upstanding or as considerate as Leonhardt. That much was obvious. He recalled how Leonhardt was always surrounded by women whenever they went into town, and Ritter felt like crying a little after completing their preparations. They departed via Nikolaus's teleportation circle, having endured more of his sarcasm along the way, and spent the next few days traveling to the remote Bit Village. It was a place they'd stayed at just a few months earlier, during a Mandragora hunting mission. The change since then was astonishing. What the hell is this? Chain roses? Yeah, these are plants from the demon realm. Around the village, sharp, thorny plants grew in dense barriers, as if to ward off intruders. Some of the thorns were stained red with blood, and the white roses growing there had turned crimson in those spots, likely from absorbing the blood. The sight sent a chill down their spines. This doesn't seem like something humans could have done. No, it doesn't. Let's talk to Village Chief Dayon. Yeah, Dayon-senpai should be able to explain. A former holy knight had retired to this village. Though he was from an earlier generation than Leonhardt, Ritter had been under his care directly. Ritter trusted him more than anyone, so he was confident Dowon's word could be relied on. The thorny brambles hadn't blocked off the entrances, so they cautiously stepped into the village. The thorns pointed outward only. Inside the village, the plants were soft and lush, bursting with color. The contrast between the outside and inside was striking. Oh, it's the knights, hello. Hello, young lady. Is the village chief around? Yup, Dayan Oji-san. The cheerful girl they'd met on their last visit was still as bright and energetic as ever. But the village itself had changed drastically. Rare plants like those found in demon realms now grew all around. It truly did look like a village ruled by plants. You guys, huh? What's going on?
We were going to ask you, Dowon-senpai.
This place wasn't like this before. Yeah, well, it's all thanks to the flower witch Sama. She saved our village. As if picturing her in his mind, Dayon began speaking with a gentle expression. How the village had faced a plague, how she appeared on the brink of death, saved everyone with full recovery medicine, identified the source and fixed it, how she protected them from monsters and beasts with thorny brambles, how she gave them nutrient-rich seeds so they'd never go hungry again, how even fertilizer was now easy to come by thanks to the plants she produced. No, Simon, that can't be real. It is. If you don't believe me, go see her. You came in from the north gate, right? Head out the south gate and go to the watermill. That's where Witch Sama lives. Ritter and Leonhardt exchanged looks. Dayon had clearly become a devoted follower of this witch, speaking unbelievable things with complete conviction. I thought the merchant might have exaggerated things, but no, this looks real. The villagers are completely taken with her, and the plants, these really are from the demon realm. A village filled with rare plants that normally wouldn't survive in human territory, and villagers casually using them with smiles on their faces. It was a strange sight. No wonder traveling merchants had been spooked. Ritter instructed their men to observe the village and intervene if any danger arose. Then he and Leonhardt left the village, heading toward the watermill. Hard to believe Dowon-senpai's changed that much. Think it's brainwashing? Hard to say, but the villagers did seem happier than before. Even with a demon realm right next door, weird. The gentle murmur of a stream and the creaking of a water wheel reached their ears, and both men fell silent. Hiding their presence, they moved cautiously among the trees lining the river. First, they wanted to get a glimpse of this witch from a distance. Soon, the watermill came into view. The area was a vibrant field of flowers. A beast-kin child could be seen harvesting vegetables near the house, so the two men silently circled around toward the riverbank. Ah, the moment they rounded the building, the sight before them stole their breath. Porcelain white skin, a voluptuous female form traced in elegant curves, sunlight gleaming off the water's surface, and soft green hair slicked wet against her back. Her face turned toward them, so perfectly sculpted, it could have been mistaken for a doll's. I deeply apologize. Leonhardt's panicked voice was quickly followed by a hand reaching out to cover Ritter's eyes, but it was far too late. What had been seen could not be unseen. A rush of heat surged through his body, followed by the warm trickle of something running from his nose. For a man who had never seen a woman's body outside of his mother's, the image of a stunning beauty bathing was too much to handle. That kind of body. I've only ever seen anything close in that running Mandragora back in the demon realm. Chapter 20. I'd been completely accepted by the people of the village as the flower witch. The edible plants I created through diversification and the ones the villagers had already been growing were all cultivated using fertilizer from the purification blossoms, and I received a share of the vegetables and fruit that were harvested. With livestock feed now plentiful, the village, which had only kept a few chickens and 2 goats, was even starting to dabble in animal husbandry. Some villagers had purchased cows through traveling merchants. I don't have a strong sense of smell, but the villagers had asked me to bloom purification blossoms there too. According to Noel, the animal pens don't smell at all now. An animal pen covered in flowers. It's kind of whimsical, huh? Getting milk from cows or goats makes me happy too. Nutrient-rich liquids are easier for me to absorb as food. Noel prefers cow's milk over goat's milk, and he was delighted the first time we got some. Apparently they're even making cheese now, and he's looking forward to the results. Food really is one of life's pleasures. Watching Noel happily eat while I drink tea, milk, or fruit juice. Well, I touch it to my lips to absorb it. That's become part of my daily routine. Witch-sama, you don't eat very much, do you? Yeah, I eat monsters instead. By occasionally consuming the monsters or beasts caught in the village fence, I keep my energy levels up. Of course, I also eat the things the villagers bring me now and then, especially raw eggs, which are quite nutritious, so I eat those from time to time. Still, to a human observer, it probably looks like I barely eat. Noel's ears drooped slightly in concern. Are you maybe holding back so I can have more? That's not it. I do want you to eat plenty, though. I shook my head. I don't eat much human food because it's made for humans. Also, I can't cook. Since I can't taste things like a human, I can't make good use of ingredients in this world. The first thing I ever cooked was grilled wild bird infused with full recovery medicine. But when I tried cooking again after coming to the village, Noel stopped me with a pale face saying, "I'll do it." So I guess it wasn't very good. He normally cooks his own meals. He always tries to offer some to me, but I decline and just accept drinks, so to him, I probably seem unhealthy. What about something like jam for tea? Would you eat that? That I might be able to eat. Then I'll make some jam today. And off Noel went, cheerfully heading to harvest from the fields. While he was busy, I decided to go bathe in the river behind the house. My clothes are made from my own vines, so I can unravel and wash them. I let my hair return to vines, soak them in the river, and clean everything thoroughly. Even though my body doesn't produce grime like a human's, dirt and dust still cling to the clothes. If I don't wash them, it just builds up. I gave Noel a warm bath setup, but I'm not really into hot water. The basic bathing style in this world involves filling a large tub with hot water, but I feel like I'd turn into a boiled mandragora if I went in one of those, like I'd start producing mandragora broth. Purification blossoms were now growing along the riverbanks and slowly extending upstream. Their white petals floated downriver in the current, and perhaps thanks to them, the water had become rich in nutrients. Bathing in it is good for me. Water plants and fish are thriving here now too, so I occasionally eat them as a snack. Noel's in the fields and no one else is around, right? Just as I was thinking about catching a fish, I heard a male voice say, "Ah," behind me, and I turned around. There stood 2 humans. One was a knight I recognized. He froze upon seeing me. Naturally, I screamed inside, but the sound didn't escape my body. I deeply apologize. One of the men spun around in a panic while the other reached out and covered his companion's face with his hand. Perhaps he struck him in the process because the poor guy now had a nosebleed. I hadn't caught any fish yet and they came from behind so they didn't see anything, right? My body only mimics the human form. It's not an exact copy. I have a large chest, but no protruding parts. From the front, I look like a mannequin, smooth and seamless. If someone saw closely, they'd probably notice something was off. I quickly got out of the river and regrew my clothes from the vines that form my hair. Internally, I was a mess of silent screams as I watched the two of them. Both still had their backs turned and weren't looking. The Mandragora we saw before was just as well built. Ritter, that is incredibly inappropriate. Please stop. These two were the pair I'd seen near the demon realm once. The nosebleed knight had apparently seen me back then too, in that unfortunate form. The other had been the one on the brink of death whom I'd saved. I'm glad he survived, but we met near the demon realm. What if he questions why I was there? That's bad. If they think that Mandragora evolved into this, I need more running Mandragora decoys. If there are other running Mandragora around, people will assume they saw one of them. No one would guess that a humanoid Mandragora was creating copies of her old self using diversification and clone skills. I'd put it off since things had been peaceful, but clearly I do need to create more of those running Mandragora. If I want to keep pretending to be human, I'd better do it soon. Time to plan an experiment. Wait, how long are they going to keep facing away? Oh, right. They don't know I've put my clothes back on. The knight who'd survived my voice last time might have taken countermeasures again, but I didn't know for sure. Best not to risk speaking. Instead, I approached and gently tapped one of their shoulders. Please forgive us for what happened earlier. Yes, not thanks. Yes, I deeply apologize. Both of them turned around. The knight I'd saved was now wearing an eye patch, hiding the mismatched eyes I remembered. The other was still rubbing at his nose, mumbling to himself. Ritter, I'll do the talking. Please take a few steps back. Chastised, the nosebleed knight retreated a little. The one-eyed knight looked at me intently with his golden eye. Are you the Flower Witch Dono? Chapter 21. When he asked if I was the Flower Witch Dono, I nodded. It was true that the villagers called me Flower Witch Sama or just Witch Sama, even if I'm actually a Mandragora. As far as humans are concerned, I am the Flower Witch. My name is Leonhardt. That one over there is Ritter. We've been dispatched from the Order of Holy Knights. The Holy Knights, oh right, I think I heard Daon-san used to be one. The village chief Daon did seem different from the other villagers. According to Ellie, he'd worked as a Holy Knight before becoming the village chief. Since the info came from a child, I didn't know the exact nature of a Holy Knight's work, but her tone made it clear they were admired figures. They're knights after all, so I'm guessing it's a job where they protect people. Maybe something like police officers from my old world, but more friendly and approachable. As you may already know, there's a new demon realm forming on that mountain over there. We're here to investigate whether it might affect this village. During our stay, we'll also be protecting the villagers. Today, we're just here to formally introduce ourselves to you as well, Witch Dono, since you live nearby and, well, our earlier intrusion was truly inappropriate. Thank you. And don't worry about it, I'm not upset. I smiled and shook my head. It didn't seem like they'd seen any parts that were missing, and they didn't notice my body was abnormal either. Honestly, I'm not embarrassed about being seen naked because my body is basically roots. What would be embarrassing is if someone saw the stamen and pistil in the flower at the top of my head. They're tucked inside the bud-like petals, but if anyone looked in there, I'd definitely scream. Thank you for your understanding. By the way, which dono could it be that? Leonhardt looked a little hesitant, like he was struggling with how to continue. I tilted my head slightly and pointed to my chest, the spot where he'd once been injured. His eyes widened a bit in recognition. Then he smiled. So it was you who saved me back then. Thank you. Thanks to you, I was able to return to being a knight. That's great to hear. I was wondering how you ended up. I had healed his wounds with a full recovery medicine, but hadn't known what happened to him afterward. Seeing him alive and well now was reassuring. Also, I was glad I hadn't poured the medicine directly from my mouth like I'd considered. Even half-conscious, he remembered my face if I'd done something that weird. What kind of impression would that have left? Witch Sama, I'm done harvesting. Who are they? Just then, Noel appeared with a basket full of berries and fairy candy fruits. Upon spotting unfamiliar humans, his tail stiffened, and he gave them a wary look. Leonhardt greeted him politely, but Noel continued to stare suspiciously at them as he moved to stand protectively in front of me. What business do you have with Witch Sama? We just wanted to speak with her for a moment. Witch Sama lost her voice. She can't talk. If you want to ask anything, ask me. Lost her voice? Oh no, he's the one who heard my voice before. I'd been practicing speaking to people when I found Leonhardt collapsed in the demon realm. For some reason, he hadn't died from hearing my voice, but normally people do. Ever since, I've pretended to be mute. If he says, "But I heard her speak," I'll be in real trouble. Internally, I was panicking and sweating buckets, but outwardly my face smiled serenely. That's how this body works. The more I scream inside, the sweeter I smile. Witch Sama saved me in the village. She's not a criminal or a fraud. Even if you're holy knights, I won't let you take her. Huh. Wait, did you come to arrest me? But I've been a good witch. Why? Noel stood in front of me, tense with concern. I placed my hand on his shoulder and studied Leonhardt's reaction. Even just having a child stand in front of me made me feel a bit braver. Please stay right there, Noel. It's true there are rumors about Witch Dono, but they're only rumors. We're not here to arrest anyone at this stage. Witch Sama is the real deal. Yes, that's precisely why we're here to investigate and clear her of suspicion. I'd like to help prove that this Witch Dono really is the second survivor. Leonhardt knelt in front of Noel, lowering himself to eye level and speaking gently. He was incredibly polite and came across as the perfect young man. Even Noel seemed a little taken aback by his demeanor. So it's because I appeared suddenly that people are suspicious. Well, I'm a fake, just a Mandragora, but still, I didn't think I was under this much suspicion. Even though I'd built trust with the villagers, it made sense that outsiders hadn't yet accepted me. If I could earn the trust of these investigators too, it might secure my place here for good. While we're staying in the village, we'll also slay any monsters that appear nearby as part of our duty. It's our role as holy knights to protect people from threats. We have no intention of hurting anyone. Please believe that. So their job is to slay monsters. They came to see if I was a real witch. And if not, maybe arrest me for fraud. But what if I'm not a human fraud? What if they realize I'm a monster? If they find out I'm a monster, they'll slay me.
Oh no, I absolutely cannot let them find out, and I can't act too suspicious either, or they'll think I'm a con artist. I have to show them I'm a kind, competent witch. This is getting way too hard. Chapter 22. I'd thought about increasing the number of Mandragora, but the issue was the scream that came when pulling them up. If I could create them without the scream, great, but I doubted it would be that easy. If anyone was nearby when I did it, they could die. I spent several days worrying about how to proceed. With the diversification skill, I can grow only leaves, flowers, or fruit from a plant. I can also accelerate growth or wither them at will. I've even made fruit containing medicine. But when it comes to altering a creature's body, basically leveling up and evolving by spending evolution points, I wasn't confident I could pull that off mid-creation. I've been turning the yard into a playground so kids come to visit all the time. And now the knights are always watching too. How am I supposed to grow Mandragora under these conditions? With Leonhardt, Ritter, and their group of 10 knights now stationed in the village, things were tight. They'd been here before and were clearly unsettled by how much had changed. Whenever I entered the village, I could feel their wary eyes on me. I guess the changes were too fast. From the outside, it probably looked super suspicious. All I did was try to make life easier for the villagers and grant their wishes. A lot of the plants I'd absorbed in the demon realm ended up being useful. But for all that to become commonplace in a human village so quickly, it must look bizarre. And if people are claiming a witch made all this, it only makes it worse. Ugh, I really can't let them find out I'm a monster. For now, I'll try to be friendly, smile and wave, right? Even though I was screaming on the inside, my face could only show a calm, gentle smile. I tried waving at the knights who were watching me warmly, but it didn't seem to help. They averted their eyes. Witch Sama?
Fresh eggs for you? Thanks to you, our livestock are thriving here. Fresh milk, please accept it. You must be tired from using your powers all the time, right? We gathered some petals, use them for garden fertilizer. Hey, Witch Sama, for that secret base on top of the tree, can you make a giant grassy bed? Whenever I walked through the village, people kept calling out to me. They also brought tons of things, so Noel's arms were quickly overloaded. Noel had somehow become officially recognized as my attendant by the villagers and seemed determined not to let his mistress carry anything. Though just a child, being beastkin meant he had the strength of a grown man. Even so, the sheer volume of items made it hard to carry with his small body.
Seems like nobody in the village is in trouble right now. Maybe we should head home. Noel's about to collapse. I'll help you two carry that. Suddenly, Leonhardt appeared and casually lifted the basket of milk out of Noel's hands. He moved with practiced ease, like he often helped carry heavy loads for others. From what I'd seen over the past few days, Leonhardt seemed to be more liked by the villagers than the other knights. I can carry that much. You're beastkin, so I'm sure this weight is nothing for you. But still, please let me help. I owe Witch Dono my life. I'd like to repay her. You do? Yes. It happened when I was investigating the changes in the demon realm and climbed the mountain alone. As Leonhardt began recounting his story, Noelle stopped to listen. When Leonhardt took a step toward the watermill, Noelle followed naturally alongside him. Their story of how we met seemed to really interest Noelle, so this was a good conversation starter. I could see Noelle's suspicion slowly fading as he listened. Wow, he's really good at winning people over. I wish I could do that. Of course, if I tried talking to people, I'd kill them, so I couldn't really imitate that tactic. But by observing his social grace, maybe I could find clues for getting the knights to lower their guard. I followed the two as they chatted. I didn't expect to meet anyone in a place like that. I was ready to die. But Witch Dono appeared, and in her mercy she wept for me. I get it. Witch Sama is kind, and those beautiful tears worked a miracle healing my wounds. The same thing happened in the village. Witch Sama's tears have a special power to heal people. Before I knew it, Noelle had started speaking formally to Leonhardt and was eagerly recounting stories of my deeds. Like a child proudly bragging about something fun to an adult. Noelle animatedly shared every detail. Leonhardt listened with practiced nods and gentle prompts, keeping the conversation going. Ever since I picked Noelle up, we've spent every day together. If I'd slipped up anywhere, he probably would have mentioned it by now, and just thinking that made my non-existent body temperature drop several degrees. I haven't done anything weird in front of him, right? What if this whole exchange was part of the night's investigation? I silently screamed inside, following the two as they walked. Noelle was happily chatting, but Leonhardt's serene smile made me anxious. I couldn't tell how he was taking all this in. Witch Dono, are you really unable to speak? Isn't that inconvenient? Not really. Witch Sama's intentions are easy to understand. She's always thinking about us and what we need. I'm proud to serve her. That's why I didn't want her taken away and I acted a bit rude. I understand your feelings, Noelle Dono. Yes, and since you were saved by Witch Sama too, I thought you'd understand how I feel. Please do your best to clear her name. Of course. Leonhardt turned back and smiled at me, and that smile somehow felt like it was saying, "Why are you pretending you can't talk?" I let out a massive scream in my head, but on the surface I returned his smile gently. He totally suspects me. Oh no, I've got to do anything to reduce suspicion. That's it, I'll go to the mountains. If I'm far from people, I can grow more Mandragora safely. By creating other suspicious things, I could divert attention away from myself. If I gave them something else to focus on, maybe I could scramble the investigation. My panicked mind made the decision. Within the next few days, I would definitely grow more clone Mandragora. Chapter 23. It was late at night, with the entire village sound asleep. I quietly slipped out of my hammock and stepped outside. Noelle's sleeping soundly. Looks like the sleep-inducing fragrance worked. Today, I had mixed some sleep pollen-producing flowers into the array of plants growing around the house. I'd suspected someone might be watching me, so I'd prepared this just in case. With this scent, Noelle wouldn't wake up or go looking for me. It's just a sleep aid for a child. I'm not doing anything shady or suspicious at all. Now then, gotta get far enough away that no one can hear my voice. Instead of heading toward the village, I made my way up the mountain. As I walked, I grew a trail of grass that herbivores tend to like, something like pasture grass. I left a small thread of awareness in it, like a passive sentry. If anyone stepped on the path, I'd know immediately. It would serve as both a trail marker and an intrusion alarm, and on the way back I could just dissolve the clone and leave the grass behind for wild animals to feed on. 2 birds with 1 stone. It was a full moon tonight, and the moonlight was beautiful. The village had gone completely dark, so everyone really was asleep. I definitely can't grow Mandragora where people are. Okay, no one's followed me, should be safe. I followed the river upstream, where the purification blossoms were now blooming. Their white petals glowed faintly in the moonlight, beautiful in the dark. Around the river, other wild grasses were beginning to spread too, likely thanks to the purification blossoms. And sure enough, herbivores had started showing up to graze. A deer-like monster spotted me and froze solid. That tends to happen. Herbivores and herbivore-type monsters usually either freeze in place or run for their lives when they see me. Perfect timing, come forth, Mandragora. I dropped a Mandragora seed on the ground and forced it to grow rapidly. The land nourished by the purification blossoms made the growth cost minimal before the deer could flee. I yanked the plant out of the ground. Kaya, sorry for the scare. If the Mandragora leveled up from that, maybe I can evolve it to run. From the corner of my vision, I saw the deer collapse. So it must have worked. When I gave the command, the Mandragora's thin root limbs thickened, becoming usable legs and arms. Can you move? Oh, and try to be harmless and cute, okay? It's important to look non-threatening to humans. I tried making it walk. The little round body waddled about the area with a soft bobbing motion. When I connected my consciousness to it via the clone's skill, I could control its movements freely and even share its vision. Controlling two bodies at once would take practice, but just monitoring its vision wasn't hard. It was like watching two security camera feeds at the same time. This could be super handy for surveillance. Having a few of these running around would be useful. When I let go of its movement control, the Mandragora plopped down and started resting. It seemed to have a bit of will of its own, simple thoughts, at least. Right now it was doing what it thought was cute, a bit calculated, but that might help disarm human suspicion. Okay, so monsters created through diversification can level up, evolve, and be controlled like puppets. Normally they act on their own, but I can override them when needed. That's good. I commanded the clone Mandragora to run, absorb the deer, and return. It did so promptly. I scooped it up in both hands. But I can't just bring this into the village. It might scream and kill someone. If the deer had been stronger, maybe it would have gained a second level. Got any evolution points left? Try making a plug to seal your voice. The Mandragora in my hands raised a tiny arm in a salute. That meant, got it now. Even if it screamed, the sound wouldn't escape. I also needed to tell it not to scream on its own. Since I now lived in a human village, I hadn't used my own voice in a long time. I was starting to worry I might forget how to speak. So I figured, while I was away from people, I could practice quietly. Just a little. From now on, you must never raise your voice. You must never harm a human. Other than that, you're free to do as you like. The Mandragora raised its hand again in acknowledgement. With its round, Haniwa-like face and small, bobbing body, it looked like a little mascot character. Now that I'd sealed its voice and made it harmless, it shouldn't pose any danger to humans. To prevent any accidental absorption attacks, I fashioned a set of clothes for it from my vine hair, just like mine. Except for the eyes, the clothes covered its entire body. That should make it look safe. The vine fabric I tore from my own clothes was connected to the Mandragora like a graft. With this, the outfit wouldn't wither. It was like a live cutting. Oh, right. Since it's technically my clone, I can probably view its status screen, right? I tried it, and sure enough, text popped up in my vision. I should have checked this from the beginning. I could have just read the stats before giving commands. Species, Mandragora, familiar, level 3, vitality D, magic power B. Skills, none, evolution points 1. Description: a Mandragora grown with nutrients from purification blossoms. As a familiar type clone, it faithfully obeys its master's commands. It has evolved to be mobile, but due to orders from its master, its lethal scream and any ability to harm humans have been sealed. Currently low threat, and serves as a high-quality potion ingredient. Easily captured, but provoking its master is not advised. Should orders be lifted, it may instantly transform into a shrieking, death-dealing weapon. Okay, weird description as usual, but at least it's really harmless now. I'm satisfied. Still, there's something that keeps bugging me. Why is my description still listed as a calamity? I don't hurt anyone either. I've tried hard to act in service of humans, but my own profile still flags me as dangerous. I'd love to one day be described officially as a gentle Mandragora. As I pondered this, I heard the sound of a branch snapping. I lifted my head. In the moonlight stood a man with platinum hair, tinged silver under the pale glow. His one golden eye fixed squarely on me, and his hand was gripping the sword at his waist. Wait, what? There's no way, I checked. No one was following me. I had carefully made sure no one was trailing me, yet here he was. And worse, he'd appeared from the opposite direction I came from, which meant he might not have followed me. He might have been here already. Had he heard me speak? But he looked fine. I'd spoken. The Mandragora had screamed, and yet he showed no signs of damage, so chances are he might have not heard anything. Which Dono so you can speak after all? Nope, no such luck. He definitely heard me. He'd survived hearing my voice once before, so he must have some kind of protection against the Mandragora's scream. I might be totally screwed. I screamed inside with everything I had, and the Mandragora in my arms trembled as if screaming too. Chapter 24. It was a relief that I didn't accidentally kill him, but he heard my voice. Internally panicking and cold with sweat, I scrambled to think of a way to cover it up. Unable to look at Leonhardt's face, I kept my eyes fixed on the ground. I held the Mandragora more tightly in my arms to stop it from slipping as I trembled, unsure if my unease was showing. While I stood there, frozen, he calmly walked over to me. "Please don't worry, it's all right." "Huh?" I don't feel any hostility from him. I had fully expected him to interrogate me, accusing me of deceiving humans by hiding the fact I could speak. His reaction caught me completely off guard. Standing right in front of me, Leonhardt curiously peered at the Mandragora I was holding. To look at a creature capable of a deadly scream without a shred of fear was certainly unusual. Even if he had some kind of protection, he didn't seem to feel the slightest trace of fear. "You're okay with the voice?" "Ah, just as I thought. Do you also bear a curse similar to mine?" "Ah, so he really did realize it's a curse attack." I instinctively covered my mouth with one hand, but of course that didn't accomplish anything. For some reason, the Mandragora I was holding with the other hand mimicked my gesture, covering its mouth too. Maybe because I had synchronized our consciousness earlier, it started copying my behavior. "There's no need to hide it from me. I also bear a similar curse. That's why other curses don't affect me." As he spoke, Leonhardt removed his eye patch. Beneath it was the same red eye as before. I had assumed he wore it because of an injury, but that wasn't the case. Any human who looks into this eye will come to loathe and even hate me, no matter how close we've become. Once they see this eye, they are overwhelmed with murderous intent. But because of the strength of this curse, it repels all others. That's how it works. Yet you helped me even after looking into my eye. And now again, you're not bothered at all. That's a truly terrible curse. To be hated and possibly attacked just from making eye contact. What a hard life that must be. Fortunately, since it's only in one eye, he can hide it, but living with sight in just one eye must be inconvenient for a human. It would hinder spatial awareness and be far more dangerous in combat against monsters. You bear the same kind of curse, don't you? Wait, what is he talking about? Isn't your voice cursed to make people feel hatred? His unexpected words made me blink in surprise. He was asking, but he sounded convinced already. Apparently, his original curse makes him immune to all others. That's why he didn't die or faint from my or the Mandragora's voice. And seeing that a curse so effective on humans had no effect on me, he must have concluded I'm like him. Mine doesn't just make people hate me, it kills them, though. Because his body nullifies curses, he probably can't tell what kind of effect another curse carries. But this misunderstanding works in my favor. It gives me a reason for not speaking. And while it's a different kind of curse, it's still true that my voice is cursed. So I gave a small nod in agreement. "I thought you might be worried about me hearing your voice, so I'm glad we had a chance to talk. Our curses don't affect each other. It's perfectly safe for you to speak with me, Witch-sama." Leonhardt said this with a very serious expression. I didn't know how to respond in moments like this. I'd grown so used to not talking to anyone that I seemed to have forgotten how conversations work. Besides, he's skilled at drawing out information in casual conversation. Like when he talks with Noel, if I talk too much, I might slip up and reveal, "I'm actually a Mandragora, thank you." So I kept my reply brief. Still, I was a little scared, and my voice trembled as I spoke, straining not to scream. I quickly closed my mouth afterward. The baby Mandragora in my arms trembled too, so I held it tightly, making sure not to drop it. "I should be the one thanking you, Witch-sama. You're my salvation. I'm grateful to the gods for letting me meet you." It's true, I saved his life. But still, Leonhardt's tone was so serious, so heartfelt, it almost startled me. Maybe that's just how much someone would be grateful to the one who saved their life. Come to think of it, Noel and the villagers showed similar levels of appreciation. "Please, keep the matter of my left eye a secret." As he said this, Leonhardt drew his sword. The moonlight glinted off its silver blade, and I screamed at full volume. But instead of swinging it at me, he thrust the sword into the ground and knelt before it. "In return, I vow to keep your secret as well. I swear it upon this sword." Ash, I thought he was going to kill me to keep me quiet. I'd been bracing myself to be cut down, but it turned out to be a knight's ritual oath. If I had a heart, it would have been pounding by now. Instead, all the screaming still trapped inside me was rising up like steam. "I'm heading back to the village. What about you, Witch-sama? I'll stay a little longer." "Understood. Then until next time." After giving me a lingering glance, Leonhardt turned and headed down the path back to the village. For the first time, I could feel someone walking along the path of plants I had grown. It seems he entered the mountain before I did. Since he hadn't followed me, I must have failed to notice. That was scary, but maybe somehow I managed to bluff my way through thanks to his misunderstanding. I let out a long sigh and headed deeper into the mountain. In the end, I created 5 Mandragoras. One of them was shaped exactly like the one the Night Ritter had seen, unnecessarily detailed in all its curves and contours. Yeah, this one's unforgettable after a single glance. No wonder Ritter remembered it so vividly. If social media existed, I definitely want to post a picture of this incredibly hourglass-shaped Mandragora. It was almost a shame to put clothes on it, but I dressed it in a full-body suit anyway. This only made it stand out even more. Well, whatever. Chapter 24.5, Leonhardt, Part 1. Currently, the Holy Knights are staying in Bit Village, listening to the villagers and investigating the local plants, how they're used, how dangerous they are, and so on. None of them have harmed the villagers, rather, they've only brought benefits. But the plants are so deeply woven into village life that one could argue they're causing complacency and aiming to dominate. I'll go check how far the purification flowers along the river have spread. All right, I'm counting on you. Will you be okay going alone? No problem. Ritter, just make sure you stay away from Witch Sama's house, all right? Yeah, I know. After the indecent remarks he made when he caught a glimpse of the witch bathing, Ritter is under strict orders not to approach her. Other squad members take turns standing watch, but the witch mostly just plays with children and helps villagers with various tasks too, kind and well-behaved for suspicion. She even shows up with the children to bring rare fruits like fairy candy as gifts. The knights came ready to be wary, but everything she's offered has been genuine without a hint of deceit. They're starting to feel guilty about doubting her. I get it, it does seem suspicious. But the more you look at her, the more she really does seem like a genuinely beautiful, kind, gentle person. If that's truly what she is, then it feels awful to keep doubting her. Calm down. Doubt is part of our job. Even from talking to the villagers, all you hear is that Witch Sama is a good person. That in itself might be suspicious. Sure, but it just makes you want to believe in her. Didn't our former captain, Dawn Senpai, say the same thing? Yeah, Dawn Senpai really means it. Dawn, trying to convince the others, has been carefully explaining the witch's character and her contributions, speaking of how deeply he believes in her. His words seem to stir the conscience of the other knights. So it's pretty much confirmed she's a witch, right? She's definitely not a fraud. If someone can make plants grow that easily without even chanting a spell, that's not something a normal human can do. Then shouldn't this investigation be done already? She's clearly a witch. We still have time left in the investigation period. At least until then, stay vigilant. Once it's over, we'll apologize. That's how widespread these conversations have become. From what the knights can see, the witch is simply kind, so much so that it seems suspicious only because of how excessively virtuous she is. Rather than calling it a village dominated by plants, it would be more accurate to say it's a village living in harmony with them. Meanwhile, Leonhardt remains unshaken. As he walks upstream along the river blooming with purification flowers, he recalls his encounter with the witch. She's definitely a good person, no fraud. She even saved my life, but still, why doesn't she speak? Leonhardt has heard her voice before, but none of the villagers have, and they all believe she's incapable of speech. There must be a reason. He wants to ask her directly, but opportunities to be alone with her are rare. Now that I think about it, she wasn't affected by my cursed eye. Could it be? Leonhardt's curse is powerful. Anyone who looks into his eye should be filled with hatred toward him. And yet, when the witch looks at him, her gaze is no different than the one she gives the villagers or that young servant boy. Gentle, smiling. There's never been a trace of hostility. The curse doesn't work on her. Maybe she is immune to curses, or perhaps these flowers stretch pretty far upstream. If I go any farther, I won't make it back before morning. The purification flowers, which the witch supposedly planted to cleanse the river's pollution, extend much farther than expected. Leonhardt had assumed they were just around the village, but even once the village is out of sight, the flowers continue. Apparently, she planted them not just for the village's sake, but to support the entire mountain's ecosystem. The demon forest is full of undead monsters. If they enter the river, they'll contaminate the water. If polluted water flows downstream, it affects everything below. The purifying flowers are preventing that. She's sacrificing too much. This goes beyond mere kindness. With that thought, he begins the journey back. Tonight is a full moon, and its light combined with the shimmering white flowers and the reflection on the river makes even a lantern unnecessary, and then from somewhere nearby, a scream. Leonhardt immediately reaches for his sword, suppressing his presence as he heads toward the sound. That's when something strange flashes across his vision. A running mandragora. A small humanoid figure darts past. The flower on its head is unmistakably that of a mandragora. That must be what screamed earlier. Tracking it with his eyes, he sees someone pick it up in the distance. From now on, you mustn't make a sound. You mustn't ever hurt anyone. Other than that, you're free. That voice, he knew it well. There was no way he could forget it. Struggling to keep his emotions in check, Leonhardt moved closer to confirm the speaker. As I thought, the flower witch Sama bathed in the faint moonlight. The flowers adorning her body glowed softly. Her figure, lit by the moon, looked as beautiful as a blooming flower in full glory. He stepped forward as if drawn toward her. A dry twig cracked underfoot, and the witch turned toward him. A smile floated on her face. She was always smiling like that, and once again there was no hint of malice toward him. His hypothesis edged closer to certainty. He wanted to prove it. Witch Sama, you can speak, after all. The moment he said it, her smile turned faint, almost resigned, and she quickly looked away, trembling slightly. Though she was holding a mandragora, she clung to it as if for support. It was the first time he'd seen her look frightened. This always smiling, gentle witch, he could feel her fear now. He hadn't meant to scare her. Please don't worry. It's all right. He softened his voice, trying to soothe her as he approached. He peeked at the mandragora in her arms. Dressed in clothes, it didn't look very monstrous. Mandragora roots can drain a little mana, so the clothes were probably to block that, a running mandragora. It was certainly abnormal and dangerous, but if it could be controlled, it would be a valuable source of medicine. So it really exists, running mandragoras. But this one's different from the one Ritter saw. Are there more of them? Mutated monsters. Leonhardt recalled that even royal court magician Nikolaus had conducted similar research. Was this one created by the witch, or had it evolved naturally? But when the witch came to the village, she hadn't brought this mandragora. If she'd created it and could command it, she should have brought it. That made natural occurrence more likely. My voice doesn't affect you. Suddenly the witch asked in a trembling voice. Her expression, tinged with confusion, confirmed Leonhardt's theory. She was like him. Ah, just as I thought. You bear a curse much like mine, don't you? Hearing the word curse, the witch hastily covered her mouth. Her voice must indeed be cursed. That's why she never speaks. Why she can't. She must have cried out instinctively when she saw someone near the edge of the demon forest, surprised to see a person there. To think there's someone else in this world with a curse like mine. What a miraculous meeting. Leonhardt can never show his true self to anyone. His cursed eye turns all people against him. But now he'd found someone, the only one who wasn't affected, and surely the same must be true for her. If I speak to her, I'm sure she'll feel at ease, because her curse doesn't affect me. He removed the eye patch that usually hid his cursed eye. Even when he looked at her with both eyes, her reaction didn't change. All she seemed concerned about was whether her own curse had taken effect or not, that and nothing more. So first he explained the curse that afflicted him. And then, seeking confirmation of what he already felt certain of, he posed a question to the witch. Your voice, is it cursed to make people feel hatred? Chapter 24.6, Leonhardt, Part 2. The witch looked surprised as she slowly lowered the hand covering her mouth. Blinking a few times as if conflicted, she gave a small nod in reply. So, it's true after all. I'd heard she's lived for 500 years near the demon forest, but this might be one of the reasons why. Her voice carries a curse that instills hatred in others. Whether she was born with it or acquired it during the battle against the dragon remains unclear. If she had others of her kind, perhaps she might have found someone who understood her. But now, the only other demon left is Nikolaus. Back then, Nikolaus had still been an infant. Before the war with the dragon, he was sent to safety. And when the rest of their kin perished, he was raised among humans, never knowing the full truth. Raising a child without being able to speak would have been incredibly difficult. The witch likely chose to remain in the mountains instead of retrieving him, staying behind to mourn her fallen brethren. And while she lived there, she discovered a mandragora that had undergone an unusual mutation in the thick miasma immune. to its voice, she began to study it. From there, her research expanded to all kinds of plants. That's how she likely developed her current magic. Mandragoras carry a curse in their voice. If her own curse was similar, it would make sense for her to study them in hopes of understanding her own affliction. Through that connection, she would have researched various plants and integrated them into a magical system. 500 years spent honing a magic steeped in flora, and just like Leonhardt, she's unaffected by other curses. That would make Mandragoras, dangerous though they are, ideal research subjects, relatively safe and manageable. But over time, the mountain changed. It became a demon forest. Her peaceful life was broken. Demon realms don't slowly fill with monsters. They erupt with them all at once. The place she lived must have been suddenly overrun. And if at that time she had several independently mobile Mandragoras she was using for research, and they fled during the attack, the escaped Mandragoras would have used their screams to defend themselves, killing monsters. The bodies left behind would have risen as undead. Realizing that her Mandragoras might be affecting the ecosystem downstream, she probably came down the mountain to investigate. Seeing Bit Village, she must have felt responsible, guilty even, and began working herself to the bone for the villagers, extending the purification flowers along the river to mitigate the impact. She could have simply disappeared without saying a word, and no one would have known. But unlike Leonhardt, she's far too kind for that. She may bear some responsibility, but this goes far beyond what she owes. Had she deemed Mandragoras dangerous and disposed of them, the current demon forest might never have formed. But seeing her still cradle them now, perhaps these creatures, after the loss of her kin, were her emotional anchor during centuries of solitude. How could she bring herself to destroy them? Being utterly alone, I understand that pain well. She's lived 500 years in a place with no one else. Her loneliness far outweighs my own. Besides, Mandragora screams can't kill many monsters. Their range isn't very wide, and they don't run around constantly. They're plant monsters. They're calmer underground. If left alone, they naturally burrow and rest, but undead monsters infect what they kill. Sometimes they evolve into more dangerous variants that manipulate curses. That explains the sudden surge of undead goblins. From there, more cursed creatures and even poison-resistant monsters emerged. The forest became a nest of undead curse-wielding and toxic monsters. This all began with just a few running Mandragoras. Truth really is stranger than fiction. The origin may have been the Mandragoras she studied, but the chain of events wasn't solely her fault. The monsters that attacked and were killed became the real problem. Nature took its course. Nikolaus had also planted Mandragoras, and wild ones might have existed too. Goblins were already present in the region. Plenty of them would have pulled up Mandragoras and died, becoming undead themselves, which means the transformation into a cursed forest might have happened regardless. She can't be the only one to blame. Had things gone worse, even a corpse dragon could have arisen, a true catastrophe. But as far as Leonhardt had seen, the dragon's remains were long decayed, returned to the soil, no signs of such danger now. Still, in a place with an environment as unique as this one, anything could have happened. Even so, she continues to serve the villagers without ever explaining herself. That's likely her way of atoning. For someone as gentle as her, that must be unbearably painful. Maybe she hadn't started retrieving the Mandragoras before, because the magic to control them wasn't finished yet. Until now, maybe she lacked the spell to subdue the Mandragoras. While living among the villagers, she completed it, then began rounding up the escapees to fulfill her duty. That's the most likely explanation. They're monsters, after all, not just plants. You can't control them easily. None of the village's plants are actual plant-based monsters. Even with her powers, handling monsters is a different matter. Still, she must be regretting not finishing this spell sooner. He remembered the tears she shed when she saved him. They probably weren't out of pity but guilt. Even so, he didn't mind. It didn't change the fact that she was a kind person. Our curses don't work on each other. It's safe for you to speak to me, Witch-sama. Carrying that secret, burdened with that guilt, how exhausting it must be. If she could confide in Leonhardt, share even a little of that weight, it would help. That's why he made the offer. But the witch only gave a fragile smile in return. Thank you. Her softly trembling voice was so delicate, so frail, it stirred a deep, protective instinct in him. She must still be afraid of speaking to others, he understood. Even Leonhardt found it strange that he could now look someone in the eye without his eye patch. This investigation was to determine whether she's truly a witch or just a fraud. There's no doubt about it now. She's the real thing. They'd come to learn whether she was a fraud using strange powers to manipulate people or a true surviving witch, not to investigate the forest's chain of events. Even if that was a stretch, that's how he chose to interpret it. She might be the only person in the world who can accept me as I am. I won't let anyone take her from me. He was grateful for this encounter. This bond, he wouldn't let anyone sever it. If the truth ever became a crime, he'd hide it with everything he had. It might not be the right path for a holy knight, but the righteous knight Leonhardt portrayed to others, that wasn't his true self. The real him was more selfish. For his own personal reasons, he decided he would protect this witch. And to show her I mean it, yes, I'll make a vow. With that thought, Leonhardt made a knight's oath, swearing upon his sword, and the witch, hearing that vow, smiled with genuine warmth. Surely she believed him now. I'll head back to the village. What about you, Witch Sama? I'll stay a bit longer. Understood. Then, until next time. She must be going to search for more Mandragoras. In that case, Leonhardt's role was to return first and think up a plausible reason for her absence. Speaking of which, did she manage to fool the knight standing watch? If so, Leonhardt would help cover for her. These weren't growing when I arrived. This grass, herbivores favor it. Most likely, the witch had planted it to restore the damaged ecosystem caused by the river's pollution. Leonhardt stopped in his tracks and turned to look back. She was already gone, but her image remained clearly burned into his eyes. The white flowers by the riverside, the witch blooming under the moonlight, an unobstructed, wide-open view. It was beautiful. It felt peaceful. If we're alone again, maybe we can talk more next time. Looking forward to that day, Leonhardt walked back to the village with a light step there. He woke the knight dozing outside the witch's house and offered to take over his watch so the man could return to the inn. Judging by the sweet floral scent lingering in the air, the knight had been lulled to sleep by it. Leonhardt moved to the upwind side to avoid breathing in more and waited for the witch's return. This flower's no longer necessary. I should let her know. If she ever wanted to go out at night again, he'd stand watch for her. He intended to bring that up. And then just before dawn, the witch returned, bringing 5 Mandragoras with her. So that's the Mandragora Ritter saw. Since they were under her control, they were all clothed. One of them stood out in particular. Its movements oddly emphasized its bodily curves, drawing unnecessary attention. Welcome back, Witch Sama. That's quite a distinctive Mandragora. The image of her only remaining kin back at the castle flashed through his mind. If he saw this, he'd probably fly over here in an instant. Leonhardt felt a twinge of unease, but the witch, unaware of such things, simply smiled. Chapter 25. For some reason, Leonhardt is being very kind to me. He told me I could dispose of the sleep-scented flowers and even offered to stand watch if I wanted to go out secretly. It seems he's fully prepared to support me in every way. He probably feels a sense of camaraderie because being cursed is difficult. Sorry though, the truth is I'm the one casting the curse. It feels a bit wrong to benefit from his misunderstanding, but for me to live among people, he's an extremely powerful ally. I do intend to help him however I can if the need arises, so I'd like to think of it as a mutual support arrangement. These Mandragoras, let's say they escaped from the demon forest and Witch Sama captured and tamed them. Then you cast a spell to neutralize them. That's how we'll explain it. Will that be acceptable? I nodded, thinking that would be fine. The Mandragoras at my feet raised their hands too, so it seems they're on board with that explanation. Not that it matters, they don't talk, and don't need to understand the setup anyway. Ah, Witch Sama, Leonhardt-san, good morning, Noel Dono. What are those? Noel had just woken up and come out of the house and immediately noticed the 5 Mandragoras at my feet. He looked at them like they were bizarre creatures. In my heart, I gave a command to the seedlings. Now's the time to show how harmless you are. The seedlings moved as if they'd been waiting for this. They lined up in a V formation before Noel. At the point stood the curvaceous Mandragora, each one striking a dramatic pose. If there had been an explosion in the background, it would have looked like a superhero team entrance. I made each one a different color, so it actually kind of fits. Wanting them to be easier to tell apart, I had dyed each one's outfit using flower pigment. Green for the first, yellow for the second, light blue for the third. pink for the fourth, and purple for the fifth. The curvy Mandragora was the last one, the purple one, weird. Even though they struck such confident poses, Noel only gave them a baffled look. The seedlings slumped over dramatically, hands on the ground in despair. Well, at least they didn't seem threatening, so I'd say the harmlessness appeal was a success. These are mobile Mandragoras that Witch Sama captured. It appears they escaped from the demon forest. Wait, these are monsters? These are Mandragoras? Yes. They must have undergone an unusual evolution in the special environment of the dragon's resting place. But Witch Sama has subdued them with magic and rendered them harmless. They won't scream. They should prove useful as ingredients for medicine. Hearing the word medicine, the Mandragoras posed like the subject of the scream, pressing both hands to their faces. They were probably internally screaming, but the sound didn't escape. I'd made sure all of them had sealed vocal cords, and unless they intentionally scream, no sound comes out. Also, I've forbidden even that intentional screaming, so all they can do is give silent screams. Then they're not dangerous? I see, if you're Witch Sama's minions now, I guess you're my coworkers. I'm your senior, all right? The 5 Mandragoras saluted with one hand. Noel looked satisfied and nodded. Seems the seedlings had been accepted. I might even leave their care to him. It would be best to inform the villagers in advance to avoid alarming them. I'll explain things to the Holy Knights. Got it, Witch Sama. It'd probably be quicker to just bring the Mandragoras to the village and show them. They don't look dangerous at all. One of them's shaped really weird, but the rest are pretty cute. The 4 Mandragoras called Cute joyfully raised both arms. The one called Weird looked heartbroken. Still, that reaction was probably just their idea of what cute, harmless behavior looks like. Whether they actually felt it is questionable. So we headed to the village with the Mandragoras in tow. The seedlings put on charming little acts in front of the villagers. Even though no one there knew about mascot characters, the way their round bodies waddled around with stubby arms and legs seemed to charm people. Normally they'd be spreading curses, but since that ability was sealed, all they were spreading was harmless cuteness. Only the purple Mandragora stood out, strutting like a fashion model, chest puffed out, hips swaying, all while wearing a full-body suit. The little boys especially found this hilarious. Look, that's it. That's the hot-bodied Mandragora I saw. Whoa, it actually exists. But what is that thing? It came running from the demon forest. Witch Sama caught and subdued it before it reached the village. I saw it with my own eyes. No mistake. So Witch Sama can do that too. Leonhardt smoothly explained the situation to the rest of the knights. He seems very trusted within the order. No one doubted his account. Having someone like him on my side during an investigation was incredibly reassuring. Hey, she looks kinda like that one. Ritter, we agreed you would never say that again. From the corner of my eye, I saw Leonhardt covering Ritter's mouth. The other knights sighed in exasperation. It seemed like this was a regular occurrence. My bad. But hey, Leonhardt, you seem different somehow. Do I? Well, you're always the noble knight captain, walking the path of chivalry. Ritter's been way too rude to a lady, so your reaction is totally justified. Honestly, I'm kind of put off by him too. Yeah, I guess I'm the one in the wrong. Maybe if I get used to being around women by watching that Mandragora, I'll grow a bit. Think I could borrow it from Witch Sama? Don't even think about that. The knights didn't seem suspicious of the seedlings or me at all. In fact, they looked like they were having fun. Seems like everything was going well. If the villagers got used to having the seedlings around, I could eventually place them around the village like hidden cameras. That would be very convenient. I was just thinking that when... What the hell is that? A loud voice rang out. It was a merchant who happened to be passing through.